welcome one and all.
NUFC Early Night News with Gary the Geordie Yum Yum, Andrew Bokey, Christina Cage, and Derek the Mighty Wind. Weekdays from 8 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. USA. NUFC Talk.
There you go. Welcome to NUFC Talk TV, the early night show. So we are live on DAB radio across Newcastle, Gateshead and Concert, live on YouTube and the website nufcradio.com with myself, Tim, and we have Christina Cage, as usual, Borky and the Mighty Win with us. So there's been a lot of information released today with regards to the Toon, from the financial stuff, from the CEO as well, making further comments about a lot of things. So we'll definitely get into that as the show goes on. Before we do, make sure you are subscribed to the channel, hit the like button, and give a super chat if you can to guarantee your comments being read out. And don't forget, if you can, to become a member by joining NT TV Plus for $4.99. Okay, how you doing, lads and lass?
I'm doing very well. Thomas Tuchel.
Really good. Thank you. Yeah.
Nice.
Fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Decides to play Anthony Gordon up top. What a surprise!
Well. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So, what's people going to say about the children? No, mate, I haven't.
I mean,
can we just point out a fantastic comment from Becca from the start? That Win looks like the Milky Bar Kid.
I'll take that.
I think it's more the Milky Bar Grandad.
I was going to say the Milky Bar great granddad, I would imagine.
So, we'll talk about a lot of things today. The first thing, we're going to talk about Hopkinson's comments, and that's on a lot of people's lips, I think, today. But we will get to that. But we'll leave that till the end of the show before we hand over to the late night show. The first thing we'll focus on is the stadium talk and how Newcastle sold St James's Park to a company attached to themselves and then leased the stadium back, leading to a profit of 129 million. And Simon Kappa, the CFO, has spoken about this, and he has said, I quote, because of the consequence of the profit calculated on the sale, it gives us significant amount of PSR headroom. The ability to deploy that PSR headroom is very limited because we have to comply with UEFA rules, and because the PSR regime is coming to an end, so that profit does not roll forward in the squad cost. So in a very narrow window, yes, as in yes, we can spend, we have more scope to spend on players, but we are very constrained in how we can use that. So, Win, my question, I mean, you run Chris's own personal books, never mind anything else. So obviously you're the expert in all this. So my 2 points are, first of all, explain this to us, and second of all, what do you think of this?
Can I just jump in before Win does that, because there's a bit of breaking news there from Craig Hope saying we would have failed PSR, if we wouldn't have sold the stadium to ourselves. Also, it's likely that we'll breach UEFA financial rules, which will result in a hefty fine. Newcastle selling themselves does not count towards this. This is from Connor, just breaking there, seemingly from Craig Hope.
Interesting. It does go along with how the club need to be aligned with the UEFA rules as opposed to Premier League rules or the new financial rules. So interesting. Cheers for that, mate. Go on, Win.
Right. Well, the big takeaways are that record turnover up to 335.3 million, creating a profit after tax of 34.7 million, and commercial growth was up 44%, which we'll go on to in a minute. But the big story is the SJP sale and leaseback. And there we've all been for months and months and months now, saying, why don't there must, with all the mighty muscle and brains that PIF have at their disposal, there must be a way that they can, find a loophole the way Chelsea have done, the way City have done around these rules. And it would appear they've actually done it. So what they've done is they have sold St. James's Park to one of their own companies, PZ Newco Holdings Limited, for 172.1 million. And when you remove what St. James's Park was standing on the books at for Newcastle at the time, that gives us actually a profit on disposal of 133.2 million. So whilst the overview that we've just seen showing a profit, we would actually have had without doing this deal, we would have had a loss of 97 million. So it proves that PIF are on the ball, first of all. They haven't been sitting on their hands as we have all, I'm sure, thought that they must have been doing. And they found a way around it. And we have to lease that back now. Now, the only thing I can't find, because obviously they're not in this year's financial books, is what that deal is. How much do we have to, in perpetuity actually, pay to PZ Newco Holdings annually for the use of St. James's Park? And I think
Can I
that
just
is
ask a
the
question on this?
Yeah.
Have they sold St. James's Park as a stadium, or have they sold the right to the land? So have they actually sold the whole stadium, or have they sold the ground? Sorry, the land that
sold
St. James's Park's built on. Well, not the
sold
ground, but the
don't
lease
own the
that we've got
ground.
on that land.
They don't own the ground. They've sold the buildings and the fittings and everything that goes with it.
So they've sold the ground,
but they haven't sold the actual property,
the area,
the piece of land, the footprint of land. No, that still belongs to the city. We've got they renewed the lease in it was a 99-year lease renewed in 1990.
Because the way I read it was that they'd sold the lease. They hadn't sold the actual ground, but they'd sold the lease of the ground. So the lease of the land. So they haven't actually sold the ground, in which case they've sold the lease of the ground that the land's built on.
Well, that goes with the buildings upon which that is built, yeah. But just the lease,
both,
not the actual land, and the covenants that go along with the land, just in case you're thinking they could pull a flanker and just redevelop into something else. They can't do, because the covenants on that land stipulate that it must be a sports ground. So unless they were going to change it into a baseball stadium or something like that, which I don't think would down too well.
So part of this couldn't be that they're thinking, what they're thinking is, if we do move the ground on, it's better for us to own that the lease on that land. So I mean, they can put in proposals to change that. Then, can't they? They can put in
I mean, everything they can put in. Then they would just
stop So if St. James's Park moves, is this a smart move as a business rather than particularly for well, it's worked out on both cases, but for Newcastle United, it's worked out in regards it's helped us with our profit. But the way they've been able to justify it is that moving forward, if St. James's Park does move, if we go to a new stadium, they have a company then own that land, so they can develop, well not develop, but they potentially develop that land if they get the right planning permission, and St. James's Park moves on.
No, they can't do that. Because it always has to be a sports ground. That's all.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if if they can get you can always change that caveat, can't you? You can always put in that there's a new sports ground being built, so there's no need for it to be a sports ground. Can we use this for commercial, or can we use this for residential use, or can we use this land for a different reason?
That would be one of the bargaining tools, I suspect. It's the ace in the pack that the city council hold. You know, over as long as we stay at St James's Park, Mike Ashley cannot come along, buy it, and redevelop it to something else, because it has to be you. The city stipulate. The city would have to agree to it being changed into something else.
Just breaking news there, it's Japan 1, England 0.
There you go. So,
And I missed
Win.
it. Anyway.
Go on. What is this? You know, tell us what you think about kind of. I mean, like you say, that the shows have switched on, Piff, in terms of avoiding the PSR breach, etc.
They've avoided all the sanctions, and they've given us money to spend in summer, which again we'll come on to presently.
Yeah.
The key figures. Just get these up. The revenue breakdown. Match day revenue stayed almost identical at 52 million. Media revenue dropped from 189 million to 175 million. So television revenue came down. That's obviously because we weren't in the Champions League last year. And commercial revenue went up by 40 million to 108 million. 28 million, sorry, to 108 million. Taking total revenue to a new record of 335.3 million. Now, that 335.3 million does not include the 132 million from the stadium sales. So, in actual fact, that is what's going to pay for the transfers.
Yeah.
Because when we then go on to operating expenses, and this is the biggie, this is where everybody says kick the can down the road with amortization. But what staff costs went up to 212 million. That's 25 million more. This is not player costs. This is staff costs. We added 89 new employees, non-playing staff. And our current annual player amortization right now is 105 million. So all the players that we've bought and put them on their 3, 4, 5-year contracts, whatever's left of them, that's what we're stuck with. So out of our transfer budget, every transfer window now, the first 105 comes out of that. Now, whatever's left, you can then amortize again. So if you've got 50 million left, it still gives you 250 that you can amortize at 50 a season. But then you've got to remember that the following season, unless you're offloading players, it's going to be increasing progressively as well. So that was the situation that Chelsea found themselves in.
Can you just explain for people who don't understand what amortization actually means? It's
basically depreciation.
What's the big point on that?
It's like when you buy a car. If you buy a car for £10,000, if you as a company buy a car for £10,000, you would typically write it off over 10 years. So on your books, that car doesn't cost you £10,000 in the year you bought it. It only costs you £2,000 because £2,000 comes off the next year, and £2,000 the next year, £2,000 the next year till it's paid for. If you sell it after 2 years for example. So you've paid 2 years depreciation on it. It's standing you £6,000 on the books. So right now, Bruno is only standing us about £7,000 on the books, because we bought him for 35 and we've paid off 4 years amortization. So 28 of that has now been paid for. So you only stand us £7,000 on the books. This is why players' values fall as they get nearer to the end of their contract, because the profit increases for the selling club, because on their books, even though they might have paid, 50 million for him, on their books he's actually only standing 20 million or 15 million, whatever the case may be.
So any bad sign will make, in which case, that because of the amortization, if we can't sell them for the money that we paid for them, that's sort of a massive negative thing against the club that really affects money wise. Is that what I'm taking from this? So say your car,
for example,
that you bought,
if you take
say the car that you bought, if using the car example, say the car that you bought, if that car was worth £10,000, but you crashed it into a bollard and couldn't afford to get it fixed, and it was only worth £2,000 after a year, you've lost £8,000 out of that amortization. Is that basically what we're seeing?
Effectively, yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So what it means is, with Wissa, for example, and with Elanga, two £55 million players, in 25-26, we will have written off 11 million. Of the 2 times 11 million is included in that 105 million. I mean, it's actually not, because that's 24-25 year. But we will be writing off 22 million against Elanga and Wissa this year. To use your famous figure of 250 million that was spent in the summer, that's going to be an extra 50 million on top of that 105 million. So next year's figure would be 155 million, except that we made on Isaac, we had 3 years out of him that were paid 68 for. So 68, 5, 12, about 14 million a year. So we'd already paid 42 million of that. So he was only, Isaac would effectively be standing us about 26 grand on the books. And we sold him for 126, let's say. So we've made 100 million clear on Wissa. Likewise, Sean Longstaff, he was standing with nothing on the books.
Honestly, I just think it's a bit crazy, like football these days, where football fans are having to be accountants, as opposed to just, saying we sold them for this, we bought them for this much, we're going to sell them for this much. Do you know what I mean? It's just, I mean, it is what it is. But Christina, any thoughts on all these amazing numbers?
I was up with you until the bit just after you said, and you can become a member for $4.99 per month. Everything after that's a blur, a bit of a blur to me. The only thing that gets me about the numbers, right, if I can bring this down to something that I understand, because I'm going to be honest, not a whole lot upstairs when it comes to Christina Cage. How come our entire stadium is only worth £50 million more than Alexander Isak? Like, is it not a bit crazy that 2 players are worth more than the entire stadium? So,
well, how much would it actually cost to build that stadium now?
But that's not even the question. The real question is what else could you use? Wynn was quite right. What else could you use that stadium for? Because, at the minute, it is only there as a football stadium. The land can only be used as a football stadium. So
It's
what else
well,
can you...
isn't there, Borgie?
Sorry?
It's concerts as well, isn't there?
Well, it's concerts, but I mean, you're not going to get enough concerts to pay how much we're talking. £129 million, sorry, £157 million that they paid for it. So I think that's the point, is that it's not, even for that lump of land in Newcastle, it's prime real estate, but I don't think you'd even pay that much for the land. if you are buying the land, just buy it without a stadium on it. So it's not even as if you smash the stadium down, the council all of a sudden give you permission to build whatever you wanted on it. You'd make that money back, particularly. And it's I think that's the point. So it does have a level that it's worth the stadium.
I mean, the other
When
thing
can I
about the
just
stadium in
when can I just
particular,
ask you a quick question? Obviously, sorry, I've lost the figures on my phone, but the stadium was sold for one price, and we could only put, I think it was sold for about 160 million, from what I read, and we could only put 120 or 125 million pound into the club. What was that? Where's the rest of that money gone? Why couldn't we use? Why didn't we get the full price of what we sold the stadium for?
it was sold for 172 million,
Yeah.
but it was on the books. It was standing us at 39 million.
So where's
So,
that money come from?
well, that's what it cost to build it in the first place. In 1990, that the construction costs of all of the expansion that was done under John Hall's time. Again, everything that cost wasn't written off, and that wasn't all paid for in 1 year.
No, but
It all gets capitalized.
But that's a hell of a long time for the. So did we mortgage to buy the stadium?
Well, that's effectively what you did, yeah.
That's what we did. So we paid off the mortgage
So
basically on the rest of that
you
money.
paid off the mortgage, which was standing us on the books. And bear in mind all of the improvements that they've done since in terms of corporate and everything that they've added. You know, all the costs associated with that. Well, anyway, we know for a fact it was standing us at 39 million on the books, because the profit on it is 133.2 million.
So I suppose the easy question is then, what's in PIF's interest in going out and building a new stadium that's going to cost them at least £1 billion? We've heard maybe it's 2 billion. If
Just
it's
on
never
that,
going to be
Borky.
worth that sort of money.
Yeah, just on that, Gavin says Newcastle have leased it back for 50 years, like you say, Win, so I don't think you'll be getting a new stadium anytime soon. So just to go alongside what you said there, Borky, what's your answer to that, Win?
Well, that's the answer. They're expecting to get a lot more in a new stadium. That match day revenue, which is dwarfed by Tottenham's, Arsenal's, Man United's, Liverpool's, because of their capacities and better facilities. That 52 million will, I would suggest, at least double.
Would it not make more sense to just finish the stadium that we've started building, though? Like, if you look at St. James's Park, there's clearly two parts of it that haven't been fully expanded. So why don't we just build that up so that it all looks it would kind of end up looking like a Geordie San Siro?
Because of
love to, but
Lees's Terrace.
That's the main sticking issue, Lees's Terrace, isn't it?
Lees's Terrace is the one thing that prevents us doing that.
And I've got another question as well. So if say, for example, I won the Euro Millions and I was like, okay, do you know what it is? I want to buy Newcastle United. Would I have to buy the stadium separately?
Well, that would all be part of the negotiations to take the club over. You could buy the entity that is Newcastle United. That would be one company, and you could then yourself enter into the leasing agreement with Newco, who now own the stadium, or the rights to using the stadium, shall we say?
So, in my respect,
but the benefits to moving to a new stadium for PIF is that they probably double match their revenue, and that's just in the stadium itself. But they would then get all of the ancillary catering and bars and car parking, and they'd probably build hotels and conference centres there as well, and they'd get, have corporate events there. It would become more than just a football stadium. It would be a full-on conference, as the American stadiums all do now. They're literally cash cows once you get one in the right place.
To be fair, though, I think we do have to point out in regards to the way this has been done, this deal, it's not unusual for companies to have holding companies or have other companies owning bits of the same thing. So Newcastle United, we see as an entity as one whole thing. I think normally as fans, you see everything being lumped in together, whereas that's not how business always works. Sometimes there's different little entities of the business, and it's done for tax purposes. It's done for commercial reasons. It's not unusual. So I don't think anybody should be worried out there that Newcastle United now don't own the stadium. We do. It's just held in a different company than it was.
Yeah.
Just
Anything
to,
else, Win?
Well, this is without selling the stadium. Last year we made a loss of 11.2 million, and without selling the stadium, this year that loss would have been 98.5 million.
Mm.
So the difference, you can take that 98, nearest damn it, that 98.5 plus the 37 million that they're showing this year as profit. If you add the two together, that's the difference between what was sold the stadium for and what it was lying on the books.
Somebody said in the comments that with the UEFA rules that we've breached, we've avoided breaching Premier League rules because of this, but we've still breached UEFA rules. And somebody said in the comments there that the talk from Craig Hobb is a £5 million fine. I think that's what I read.
Yeah.
Do you think we could have avoided this?
UEFA
The issue.
have virtually got no teeth at all.
I
They
think
can't
£5
deduct
million.
points, for example, in the Premier League.
£5 million is naff all, really. I mean, if we get
You
fined
can't
£5
steal
million,
things,
and don't get us wrong, to the normal man, it's a hell of a lot of money. But to a football club like ours, taking a hit of £5 million when you think of what we've earned from the Champions League this season is absolutely nothing.
I still don't understand though, because and I'm sorry if I'm being really thick here, but I'm sure some people who are watching and maybe some of the people who are listening on DAB radio in their cars right now would like to understand maybe how selling the stadium has now put us into a profit of 130 something million, but we still failed a rule that says that we need to be within a 20% deficit. So how does that work? Like, this has caused more confusion about these PSR and CSR rules than I was originally, and I'll be honest, I was quite confused about them to begin with.
Yeah.
Right.
Won't win.
To try and make it easy.
Good luck.
What FFP PSR does means that you can't trade. You're not allowed to trade at a loss on a perpetual basis. You are allowed to lose 35 million a year with the current rules, but that is capped at 105 million over three. It's a rolling 3 seasons. That actually comes to an end though this season. So all that does is take away your spending power, because it counts as an operating cost. And you've got the big takeaways from these books said that without the sale leaseback, we would have lost 98.5 million, which we would have then breached the FFP rules, let alone the UEFA rules. But on the plus side, revenue grew by 15 million. Commercial revenue grew by 15 million. But on the debit side, wages and operating costs grew by 50 million. So the stadium sale was a necessary PSR bridge to maintain squad strength.
So I think part of the question there is then moving forward, we haven't got that option now to sell the stadium. That's a one-off option. So moving forward with all these rules, are we absolutely knackered in regards to how do we make up this 127 million that we got for the stadium in other seasons moving forward?
Well, as Hopkinson said, this is where commercial growth has to come. Commercial growth has to come in, If we are
And
going to compete
player trading as well.
and what, sorry?
Player trading.
Yeah, player trading, absolutely. But that's the last thing we want to see, really. Well, that's the last thing I want to see. I would far rather see commercial revenue grow and match day revenue grow and media revenue grow. And you get, I mean, that was a big hit this year, with not being in the Champions League.
Yeah.
That cost us 15 million. It could have been a lot more because we did well in the cups and that. So, yeah.
Well, I want to move on. Okay. So,
Yeah.
just to kind of segue from what you're saying, because in what you're saying, Borgie, how do we go forward with these rules? And UEFA's squad cost rules are that 70% squad cost rules limits club spending on wages, transfers, and agent fees to 70% of their football-related revenue. Right. So the consensus coming out from the Geordie Journals video that I watched, who were at the briefing that the club had, was that the club will be working towards that squad cost limit and not the Premier League limit of 85%, because the logic is that obviously we want to be in Europe.
Be in Europe.
Exactly. So it's pointless reaching the threshold of the 85% Premier League spend, only to be in a pickle a year later with UEFA if we do qualify for Europe. So this means more than ever that the club need to maximise every possible resource to compete high up in the league. And Hopkinson said himself, one of the quotes that came from him when talking about Tonali, he said, there are a multitude of things we need to employ, including development of our own. Right, so I want to zone in on this in regards to what I've just said about how do we get around UEFA rules, etc. And for me, that means, as Hopkinson basically said there has to be a pathway into the first team for young players that are signed and for youth players coming through the ranks. So this, to me, is another potential sticking point between Eddie Howe and the footballing strategy that is needed, okay? Because this UEFA squad cost limits, so basically it means that we can't afford to let any untapped potential in any young player that we have go by the wayside. So for me, we need to have at least one or two players coming through every year who can take up at least one squad spot in that squad. In not the first team, but in the squad. And there's three benefits, right, to this. So obviously you save money by not having to spend to get a player to plug that gap in the squad. The player themselves could go on to prove to be a very good player who might actually push for first team spot on a regular basis. And thirdly, that player could be sold at some point for good money, right? So that there's an avenue I think we need to do better at and we need to attack, right? My question is, has Eddie Howe shown he has the appetite to evolve the squad in this way? Christina.
Christina,
I
just
mean,
before you go, it's England 0, Japan 1 at half time.
thank you very much for that update. Things not looking so good for Thomas Tuchel and his England army. In regards to Eddie Howe, so I know how a lot of people are going to be looking at this with the lack of playing time for Shahar and Alex Murphy and Sean Neve. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at it from that perspective. But if you look at it in another way, we have developed Lewis Miley. He's probably, he's definitely worth more now than he was last season or the season before. And we also sold on Elliot Anderson, who came through our ranks. So, and there is the stickling point of this season. Eddie Howe hasn't seemed willing to give youth a chance, even when Trippier was like on his last legs, or when Lewis Hall was playing every second of every match and playing like multiple positions, even though he's never expressed any wish to play on the right side of the defence ever.
Louis Miley, I think you meant.
No, I meant Lewis Hall. There's been 3 games where Lewis Hall's ended up being switched to right back randomly towards the end of a game.
Oh. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I've
it
seen
is
he'll come
weird.
back.
It is weird. Holding
over slip, which
switched
he
to the
looked
right
very
back a
unhappy
lot.
about that with.
You went off, Tina, but
I
you're
mean,
back
it's
now.
only happened a few
Carry on.
times. That's when am I here? Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, there. Yeah,
Go on,
you
Tina.
disappeared momentarily.
Yeah. My apologies for disappearing momentarily. I'm glad that I came back. So yeah, like the argument that I've kind of put up a lot of the times, or not argument, but my thoughts on it has been, okay, so maybe the reason that we're not trying the likes of Shahar and Neve is because maybe they're just not ready for Premier League games. But moving forward into this new system, I mean, it's almost as if you're going to have to help these players develop. You're going to have to get them ready to be in a Premier League game. And I mean, it's going to end up being a case of sink or swim, I think, for a lot of them. And Eddie Howe, by the sounds of it, isn't going to really have much choice but to adapt to playing more youth players. Now, obviously, we've seen at a very young level, like the youth that's below the under 18s, which I can't remember what it's actually called. They look like they could be prospects. In the under 21 squad, they're not having such a great season. They've not done well through the year. The three players that we've actually brought up into the first team seem to have had quite all right cameos, but at the same time, we've not seen anything that's making us think, okay, these players would absolutely be able to fill in. Say, for example, we get rid of Kraft and Trippier at the end of this year, and Harrison Ashby doesn't come back to us. So that leaves us with Tino Livramento and Shahar. Are any of us confident that Shahar fills that role if he's needed? And I think the argument for me is that right now we just don't know. We haven't seen enough to prove it. And there are younger players that Eddie Howe does use. Like, I'd imagine Tino's value and Lewis Hall's value have both went astronomical from where they were when we first got them. But then you've got a list of players who we brought in with massive potential who have then went away on loan and proven to not be worth the hype. And this dates back to even before Eddie Howe, because what was the lad called? Kuyol? The Australian centre forward who was supposed to be going to be the next big thing. I've never even heard his name mentioned. I don't even know who he plays for now.
He's went now, wasn't he? Yeah, so
I honestly am not sure.
But is part of this not as well that we have to let head rule over heart? You've got the likes of O'Malley, which would all be devastated to see leave. Local lad, made it through, got into the first team. But if we sell him, he's 100% profit for we. Are we getting to the point now where we'll have to be this churning out machine that's going to be, willing to sell local lads, local players? And I know all yous will disagree with us on this point 100%, and I kind of disagree with myself. But to get the most profit out of a player, but to get the most profit out of a player, the easiest way to do it is to sell. If you've got an asset that's worth a lot of money, who's local, it hasn't cost you anything, that's 100% profit going out to the club.
Do you know what it is, Borky? I think because Miley, I think, is the only one, really, isn't he? If we had, 2 or 3, I think it softens the blow if you go, you know what, we're going to have to let one go and get pure profit. At least we've still got a conveyor belt, if you like, of them coming through. But the fact that Miley is the only one right now, I think that would make it even worse for us and harder to take. But Win, what do you think about the whole thing? Go on, Win.
It's an easy accusation to throw against Eddie that he doesn't give youth a chance, shall we say. Listen, he sees these kids in training. He knows it's his job that's on the line at the end of the day. He knows from watching them in training whether they're ready or not. Lewis Hall, for example, said himself when he came from Chelsea and couldn't get a game. He said that the best thing that never happened was Eddie keeping him back and, waiting until he was ready so that when he came on the scene, he could do, strut his stuff, which he's doing.
When you've come all out guns blazing there, but that wasn't the point that we were raising. The point we were raising was whether you have to sell a local player because they're worth 100% profit.
You've got to
So
trade. You've got to
well,
trade
well,
without a
exactly. So,
doubt.
so the point we're actually making was, which obviously you were watching the England game, so you weren't listening, was if if someone comes in for Mailey at a huge amount of money, it's 100% profit to her. So you have to start to let them type of players go because they're the ones that are going to earn you the most amount of bucks back in.
I don't necessarily think that those two things correlate. I would hope they don't. I would hope just because they are local products that we are sort of leaning more towards selling them because we're going to make more money off them. That no, I disagree with that completely.
So you
But
don't
the
think
thing,
we'll make more money off selling a Mailey than we would off selling somebody we've bought into the club? Because I think that's the whole point
Well,
of this financial fair play stuff, isn't it? That
the
you
amount.
make you've got to be I know you hate this and I do as well, but you've got to be a football manufacturer. You've got to be a factory that's making players out to sell on because that's the only way you can bring in the big bucks.
Right. So what you've got to do then is sell not your Louis Maileys, not the creme de la creme,
yeah,
but the so Man City didn't sell Foden, they sold Palmer, but they didn't sell Foden. They haven't sold O'Reilly. They sold what they call the other winger to Fulham,
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Bob,
uh,
Oscar Bob.
Oscar Bob. Yeah, you keep your
That's it.
you keep your good players, but you've got to maybe sell your Shahars
But
and your Murphys.
but
If
And
you,
if
ha-
you
in
yeah,
regards to that, is
go
there
on.
not a point that if you with the likes of Mailey, I agree with you, he's a great player, but if you sell him, do you have to look at it that potentially the price we would get from him, you'd get another two players in replacement of him? So is it a business brain that you
but
have to have
is
on,
any one of those
not
is any one of those
not the
two players
Newcastle
going to
United
be as
half?
good as Miley?
But then what happens if Mailey gets injured and's out for the season? You've got two of that
Well,
players in. It's sort of you've got to think of it around the whole point of this, and
Yeah,
I think point of it is that you've got to be willing to trade.
yeah. I think you've got to be willing to
you
trade, right?
have
And
got to be
I
willing
agree
to
to an
trade.
extent. But the thing is, right, is what you're saying is I agree with as well, Win, in that if we had two or three youth players coming through, right, and they weren't on Louis Miley's level, but they were competent Premier League players, and you're not going to fetch like the massive money that Miley would, but you're going to get a decent fee because it's pure profit, then that decent fee is a lot better than what it would be if you were selling at Emil Kraft, for example. You're not getting much for him, but do you know what I mean? Like another squad player who isn't a youth product. And that's where I think we need to be better so that we have younger players here and there dotted around the squad who are clearly capable of doing a job. And let's say at Fulham, for example, or somebody lower down in the league, normally anyway, come in and say we want him. We can get a decent price, nothing unbelievable, but a decent price. It's pure profit, and that actually can help us to then use that money to go back into the transfer pot. I would just say as well in terms of like Eddie Howe and being bought into this, like to me, the litmus test was the Carabao game at home, and that game it was won. That in effect was a lucrative friendly, right? And those conditions were lightning in a bottle for any young player in terms of to play their first minutes for the first team. It's a Champions League game. It's a full house at St James's Park, but the tie is done. Right, you couldn't get better circumstances than that. Yet Shaha, and I know what you're saying about trading, etc., but Shaha plays 6 minutes or something, and Neve doesn't get on at all. And yes, Alex Murphy plays the game, but he's 21 years old. He should have more minutes under his belt by now if he's going to offer something. And he's been in and around the first team training for over a year now. So Eddie Howe clearly thinks he has something to keep him in the training that long. But it's Alexa Shaw, who's 19 years old. He really, like, if you're not going to start him in that game, or at least give him 45 minutes in that game, I don't know when you will, and I think some of it I get what you're saying, Win, in that he sees them day in day out. Maybe he thinks they're not good enough, right? But there is an element where you've got to find out in the first team. You can't really judge until they get substantial minutes in the first team. Like I say, that game there was perfect. At home, crowd pressure, but the game was won. At the same time, I think Eddie Howe maybe comes from a place of fear. I think maybe he fears playing a young player and them not playing well and it affecting them. But I just think Eddie Howe needs to take a step back. And he's so detailed and meticulous, and I think he's so intense in terms of we need to win the next game, we need to do this, we need to do that. I think that is a double-edged sword at times.
Well, that's the point I would make about the Karabakh game. Yes, it was a shoe-in. Yes, it was a gimme, but it followed away victories at Spurs and Villa. Would got that momentum going, and he more or less kept first team for the Karabakh game, but to just keep that rhythm going to see if we could get on that. That nine game win and run again.
But we're in this is a pointless argument again in regards to the run. If you're in that sort of situation, we're talking about playing 3 games a week. We didn't have to play 3 games that week, really. All Eddie Howe has to say to the first team players is, look, I'm going to give you guys a rest so you are up for the next game. We're playing Karabakh, we're already through. There's no pressure on this game, so I'm going to give the youngsters a chance. But you guys you guys take a little bit of time out, have a rest, and move on to the next game. Have it in your mind for the next game? I don't buy all this going on to a run for players as such. I think a player, if they're playing in a game and they win, that's all they're really thinking about is, I've won my last game, I've scored in the last game, let's move on to the next one when I'm playing.
Well,
yeah.
But what I'm saying to you is that what you're forgetting as well, by the way, for the Spurs game, for the Villa game, that was when we made the change, putting Voltemora back in the midfield, Anthony Gordon up top, and just to keep that, get that honed in match circumstances where there was nothing at stake.
So Eddie Howe is not going to bring
hang on. You're talking about. Sorry, Tim. I'll just quickly argue on that. You're talking about that. Why the hell did he change the defence against Sunderland and Barcelona that had done so well against Chelsea? So you argue one side the point with them guys coming in. Argue this side point. Why did he bring Burns and Trips back if we had the best defensive display of the season?
I don't know. I wouldn't have done.
Well, you said you did the other night.
No, I didn't. I said I would have brought. I said I would have brought Burn back for the Sunderland game, certainly.
No, you don't. Hang on, I'll clip this because you didn't.
So, Win, what I'm trying to figure out, right, is do you think Eddie Howe can buy into a structure whereby youth players and young players get more minutes here and there so that we are in a position to maximise all our resources? Because what you say, whatever the reason was, and there might have been a right reason in terms of Karabakh, what you're saying, hypothetically, I'm just taking a face value, but whatever the reason was, he didn't do it in that game, right? So why would he do it in other games going forward? If he's not going to do it then, which was the perfect opportunity, why would he then do it later on? Can you answer that?
Can I answer that? No, I can't answer that. Other than...
Do you think you will? Do you think you will?
I think it depends on the quality of the youngsters. And I think that's what it boils down to all the time.
Do you want to ask somebody who will actually answer that? I think it depends on how he's allowed to manage this summer. I think if he keeps hold of the older players, if he's allowed to give Trips a new contract, he's allowed to give Sarr a new contract, if he's allowed to keep these tried and tested, he won't try out the kids. We've seen that season after season. If he's forced to sell those players, or not forced to sell, I'm sorry, told that they're not getting new contracts, and he has to bring the kids through, I think that's the only way of doing it.
But is he going to have a choice? Like even if he gets allowed to keep Trips, if the higher ups, so to speak, are saying, okay, this is our strategy going forward, we need to give the youth more minutes, then it might be a case of Eddie Howe either does that or we see a situation like Tottenham and Manchester managers have had, where they're like, okay, it's my way or the highway kind of thing. I think it
Yeah.
might be a case of it's kind of taken out of his hand, which I'm not sure I agree with that being the case of a football manager not being able to manage a team the way that he wants.
That's a dangerous situation. If he's in charge of the club, and whether you agree with how being in or out or whatever, he has to pick the first team. So if
Yeah,
he's got them players on the pitch and the
Exactly.
training, he has to pick the first team. The problem is that if he keeps his older players, and it's been, I'm not just saying this off no facts, it's been proven season after season, he'd miles rather pick an older player and put them into the team or the squad than put a younger player in.
I
Yeah.
mean,
And
he
is it
did
healthy
bring
having him?
Tino and
Go on.
Hall into the lineup. I don't buy this. He always plays all the players, because he did legitimately make Tino Livramento England's right back, and he did legitimately make Lewis Hall England's left back.
But,
Like,
but
it's not as
against,
if he's never played youth. When he gets quality youth, he does play them, and he does prefer to go with them.
but we're using the the Carabao game again. Why didn't he give the youth a chance in that game? Why
I'm
did he
not
play the
arguing that he
older
should have,
players?
definitely.
He never. When you ever seen him pick a youthful player over a more experienced player for a big game?
Yeah.
Well,
I'll give you
again, only
Tino,
Tino and
Christina.
Hall.
Well, I'll give it Coutinho, right? But I think with Lewis Hall, I mean, I do think that first season he could have played more. Do you know what I mean? And I understand you're bedding him in behind the scenes. And I don't doubt there was a lot of good work done there that he benefited from last season. I don't doubt that. But I think even that instance, for me, does kind of highlight his very conservative nature, where he was so reluctant to give Lewis Hall many minutes during that season, even though Dan Burn was struggling at times at left back, but he still didn't
Well,
want to put Lewis Hall in
you
until the
say
following
that.
season.
You say that, and I completely agree with your point. I'm not arguing against that point at all. But if you remember how good our defensive record was in that season, I'm not sure Dan Burn was struggling at left back at that point. I mean, he's absolutely
Second
struggling these
season.
days.
It was the second when we finished seventh.
I mean, Dan Burn still played all right in games at left back. He hadn't
Well,
been exposed
but
as dreadful at left back by that point still.
there were games, honestly, in that season we finished seventh. Dan Burn was playing left back, and there were games. Don't he was quality, and he is a good player. But at the end of that season, the final third of that season, we're a Forest away, when ironically Alanga did him. That was a time where the spotlight was very much on Dan Burn because of his lack of pace at left back. He was getting caught out a lot, and everyone was saying, "Is he going to play the next game at left back?" And lo and behold, he did, and Lewis Hall didn't. So all I'm saying is, like, again, I mean, Eddie Howe, do you want a manager to do things like, say, incorporate youth players a bit more through gritted teeth? You want the manager to be bought in, don't you, to doing that?
Yeah, I mean,
I think
the manager's got to be allowed to
Exactly as
manage the way
Bogey
he
said.
wants.
I want the manager to pick what he thinks is the best team for
But
the club
that's
on that
that's
particular day.
a fair point, Win. But you also have to have a manager who's willing to incorporate youth into the team.
That's
So
what you're
his
saying.
mindset, Eddie Howe's mindset seems to be on the very much on the here and now, and he
Yeah.
says this himself. He says, I just
Is
no,
everybody
let us
forgetting Anthony
let
Gordon
us
and all this?
let us finish the point. In regards to this, he always says the only thing I concentrate is on the next game. And that's
Yeah.
poor from a manager, really. What he should be saying is, I'm concentrating on what the future of Newcastle United is. And the best thing for Newcastle United in this game, this might not be the best team I can play, but it is a chance to give my younger players a chance. Karabag was a perfect example of that. Yes, he played the strongest team he probably could for that game, but he refused then to let youth have a chance. And that's the big problem. Every game he focuses on wanting to win instead of thinking of the long term future of the club, which is youthful players.
That's what I mean. Like, in that, it's a double-edged sword. I love the commitment, I love the intensity, but that's the flip side. What you're saying, Borky. I think just pull back a bit in terms of Eddie Howe. Pull back a bit, Eddie, and use some of these games to give youth players a chance. And I think it comes from fear. I can only think it comes from fear. And I know you're saying when he thinks they're not good enough, but why has he got them in and around the first team for over a year if he doesn't think they're good enough?
Because that's his thing. That's what he likes to do, improve players so that they are good enough.
So, which players he improved this season?
Well, this season has been difficult for him, obviously, with the problems we've had with the squad. And
Quite a simple question. That hang on. This is his thing. This is what Eddie Howe does. Which players he improved this season?
What on earth was that accent?
Well, how
This
good
was
was
repeating our win up there.
well how good was Chow when he came? I don't know.
I mean, he
Didn't
was
watch
an
him enough
AC
at
Milan
AC
centre
Milan,
back,
but I
to
know
be
the
fair.
AC Milan fans didn't rate him. He's had a cracking season for us, apart from the last few games when he's dropped bollocks. Has he improved him?
Let's not say that on video.
I mean, Tino and Hall were injured. Miley's been injured, so they're not going to improve much.
When
they're on
you're
the treatment
you're
table.
deflecting from the question again. Which player has Eddie Howe improved this season? He brought in a Wissa. Who could be a silver bullet. He brought in a Langer, who was a £55 million winger. He brought in Baltimore, who was the German international striker. Which players he actually improved out of any of those?
Can I answer this question?
Hang on. Who were paid £55 million for? Why did we pay £55 million for them? And £68 million for any of them? Why did we pay that? Because they were already the finished article. There's not a lot more improvement to get out of them. You only get improvement out of players who aren't the finished article.
So in which case, why have all three went backwards since they came to Newcastle with this manager who's great at improving players?
Well, you're saying they've went backwards. I just think that they're not playing as well. Elanga, I don't know.
So is that not the same? Is that not the same thing?
I don't know what's happened to Elanga. Haven't got a clue. Wissa, I'm putting purely and simply down to injuries. There was never going to be much improvement in him. How do you improve on a player who's got 19 Premiership goals? You can't.
But why they went backwards? Why they went backwards? In which case?
Well,
you're answering the point by arguing my case that I completely agree with you.
Well,
I completely agree with you.
I couldn't give a toss about your point. I'm telling you, if you talk to any of the players, and the players will tell you themselves, Eddie Howe is fantastic.
Hang on. Win. Stop you there straight away. If you speak to any player, they're not going to go, "Oh, my manager's absolutely rubbish. He doesn't improve us at all. He doesn't out with us."
Well, it'll be
Stop speaking to the players. No, stop speaking to the players and watch what's actually happening on the pitch. Which player has he improved this season?
This season's been a bad season.
Yeah, I think both can be true. Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
But I want to move it on, right? Okay, because I want to look at Hopkinson's comments about a few things, right? I want to quickly touch upon what he said about player trading and Tonali before we get about the Eddie Howe quote. So this is what he said. Let's have a look about player trading. So he said, "We haven't got an overall strategy with regard to players out necessarily. We think through what players might or might not want to do this summer. But if an Isak-like scenario presented itself again, any player under contract is going to leave on our terms, and we're going to maximise the opportunity that might present for the club. Going forward, our strategy is to buy well and sell well. Buying well does not necessarily mean spending the most money. It means working in the marketplace for the players that can generate the most value for this club rather than the fee paid for them. There are a multitude of things we need to employ, including developing our own, looking for opportunities in the marketplace, and making sure we are maximizing our opportunity within the available price we can produce." Tina, what do you think that tells you about our strategy in the summer in terms of Sandro Tonali and others?
I mean, I think that says quite clearly that we're not going to get mugged off for Sandro Tonali. Like, he's not going to do an Isak. It sounds like we're very much taking a hard line of, okay, you're contracted to us, we will sell you on our terms. If we get offered the right money, we will listen to those offers, but we're not just going to let you go because you want to go. It is the way that I'm kind of hearing that, which I'm quite happy to hear. I mean, I think it is time that we took a bit of a tough line, because you can't have players doing an Isak. Like, that was diabolical. We were kind of painted into a corner if we had no choice but to sell that player. and he refused to come and play for us. So I think with him, because the quote that I heard, he did actually mention players under contract to us, which I think, to me, I would hope means if you down tools on us, you're not getting paid for that week, which is how it should have been done with Isak. And it's all great words as well. I do question it, like the transfer policy part where he's mentioning like bringing in the right players. I mean, it certainly sounds like we've got more of a strategy than we did last year, which is great to hear. But there's, it's one of those things with Hopkinson, you can never 100% tell what he's saying, which is a point I'm sure I'll get the chance to come back to, because I think there's more things you're going to be mentioning about things that he said, and I do have a massive thing to say about Hopkinson at some point in this show. But yeah, I do love the fact that he is kind of putting a foot down in regards to when we sell players, it's going to be us that decide when and how those players are sold.
Borky?
I'd love to think that. I'd love to think that we can, as a club, control it. But how do we do it? How do you do it? Like if you had an Isak situation last summer, you know, you were seeing then. You try putting your foot down. You try being this big club. You try being Billy Big, whatever it is. You know, you try to be that. Yeah. You try to be that type of team, but we're not. You know, Isak proves it. If Tonali wants to go and he goes on strike, there's nothing we can do about it. If Bruno wants to go and he goes on strike, there's nothing we can do about it.
So that's technically not true.
What we're going to do to them? You fine them wages. You can do that to a point, but you can't just keep fining them. You know, you're losing a big asset by them not wanting to play for you. But what do you do as a club if a player doesn't want to play? And the other side of the coin is as well, if we don't get Europe, we're finishing the bottom half of the league where we are at the minute. Who can really blame some of these lads who are big players for wanting to be away from Newcastle United?
Well, you could argue they put us there, but yeah.
If I could just quickly give a little answer as to that. So technically speaking, a 5-year contract is agreed upon what we are going to pay you for that 5 years. So you'll hear it come out quite a lot of, okay, so such and such has signed an £80 million contract. It doesn't mean they're getting £80 million a month. And what it means is they're getting £80 million broke down into increments of weekly wages. So technically speaking, and I'm not saying this is what they will do, and it's a bit heavy-handed, so I'm surprised I'm the one that's saying this, but you could technically say, okay, if you are in breach of contract where we have agreed to give you £8 million over 5 years for you to play for us for 5 years, you owe us £6.2 million for the last 4 years that we've paid this contract that you are now in breach of, which legally speaking is possibly something that you could look at.
I don't know what the lawyers would think of that, but interesting.
I don't think any club's going to go down that route. It's absolutely an impossible one to win.
It would be a bit counterproductive, because if you were happy to let his contract go for what he owed on the contract, so you're letting Isak go for, what was he on, 126 million. You're letting Isak go if he pays his, what did he have left, 3 years on it? So he's going to give you 18 million. I think he'd be very pleased to do that.
No, you'd have to give you back everything that you paid him. It's a registration
of him that's the golden handcuff, if you like.
But that was just a thought.
Yeah, I think that it's very difficult, like you say, in this summer, because if players want to go, have they got clauses in the contract? Probably not. So, yeah, I think it's a case of maybe biting the bullet if a player says they want to go, to a reasonable extent. You don't want to be just mugs and just give them away for silly prices, obviously. But I think it is maybe a summer of compromise potentially. But when we sign players going forward, I think we should put clauses in the contracts so that we are protected, and that come these sort of summers again, we are in a position where we can say to the buying club, okay, the player wants to go, you want them, but we have a clause in the contract. It's there for you to meet. And it's obviously a lot of money for us, but it's nothing ridiculous like Barcelona sometimes put in their clauses contract. So that, for me, that's the way forward, like short term and long term. what I want to finish on
Just
is
just out of interest, folks. Well, thank you,
Go
Random,
on.
for gifting another membership.
Cheers, Matt.
And
No,
also
Yes,
for being a
man.
member himself for
it's
17 months.
And that's gone to Kalmuk, 4989.
I think it
Welcome,
says
Kalmuk.
Kamik.
And Hall and Livermento have just come on for England to save the day.
still 1-0 to Japan, though.
Still 1-0 to Japan, yeah. And that's on 60 minutes, would you believe? So that's straight swap Tuchel for Howe, and we'll get our 60-minute substitution the same.
Oh, I so wish that could be the case.
Well,
Yeah.
I want to move on to Eddie Howe. Okay, so these comments from Hopkinson, right? I want to obviously talk about it, get all your views, and we're going to switch over to the late night show where they'll be talking about it as well. But it is the big thing, I think, that's been taken away from this press release. I'll read through them, okay? So then I can expand on them. Obviously, you can say what you think. So for the viewers watching and listening, this is what Hopkinson said when he was asked about Eddie Howe. He said, "I don't have a stance on his future. What I can tell you is that the Derby loss hurt. We take it seriously. There's nothing within us that thinks, well, it's just 3 points and on we go. It resonated. I spent a couple of hours in a one-on-one lunch recently with Eddie, and we talked through a multitude of things, including that. Eddie's our manager. I expect to have a great run to the end of the season here, and we'll talk about the future when it's time. Right now, we're focused on this season's competition." And when he was pressed further on the topic, he said, in terms of, are you saying that you're open to Eddie Howe leaving? He responded saying, "I would not frame it that way. We are not looking to make a change at the moment. We are not having those conversations. We are still in the midst of the season. Right now, we are focused on the 7 matches we have remaining and not distracting ourselves with speculation about what we may or may not do in the summer. Right now, all of us have only got so much bandwidth, and we are focused on this season and finishing strongly." I'll just say what I think, okay? I'll say what I think, Win, right? I'll pass it along. So I think he's trying to balance different sentiments, right, with this. And I think on the one hand, he's trying to be non-committal, right, by kind of saying, I've got no opinion. But the wording of "I don't have a stance" combined with straight after how disappointing the derby was, I think has given everyone a license to kind of speculate like mad and put like a certain slant on it. I think it's kind of clumsy the way he's worded it. I think it's a bit naive, maybe. I do appreciate that he's trying to communicate that we have got standards and that he's trying to speak to the fans, about the derby games, that they haven't been good enough. I understand where he's coming from in that way. And I do hope the board are assessing everything, obviously, including Eddie Howe in the summer. But I just don't need to be spoon-fed, about that particular point. And I think outwardly, just say something like, Eddie's a brilliant manager. He's working as hard as anyone to put these disappointments behind us, and we're focusing on the last 7 games. And just to avoid the perception maybe of Eddie's on trial for 7 games, because the media spotlight is kind of on now in that way. And then in the summer, if you don't do that, then in the summer you can act how you see fit and decide to part ways if you think that's the way to go. But Tina, you had something to say about this. What do you think?
Yeah, so those comments to me, that kind of it's all things that I think are being said to appease the fans. And I think this is kind of what Hopkinson does. And this is why my big question about this is how much credit are we even putting on anything that Hopkinson says? And I've got a reason to come with that. So before the Barcelona game, the first one, he said 2 things that were very much spoken about on here. One is that there was no targets. Eddie Howe was the man going forward. Today, he said something that almost counteracts that. He also said that there was money available in January for us to sign players. And Eddie Howe was the one who was saying, oh no, there's certain things with PSR that's stopping us from going for the players that we want to go for. It turns out that we were £93 million in the red in January, and we needed to sell the stadium to make up for that, to comply with Premier League rules. So, and he's mentioned the Sunderland game, and I think that's just come because the fans all kicked off after those Sunderland losses. And I get that is a big thing up here, but I don't think Hopkinson really has any idea why, except that he's heard of it. Now, another rumour, and I apologise if this was something that you were going to come on for, there's a couple of journalists who have started saying that Eddie Howe is now open to the idea of walking away if the fans clearly no longer want him. So I think it's kind of piggybacking off the idea that the club has now heard that there was disgruntlement caused towards Eddie Howe because of the losses to Sunderland. Even I was starting to say, okay, look, this isn't looking good. I can see the fans turning on him, and I usually just try to see the positive in everything. But my issue here is nothing that Hopkinson said so far has shown any sort of... I mean, it did tell us that we were getting a new stadium as well, and we've just leased our current stadium for 50 years. So the big thing I wanted to say about Hopkinson is he just, is he just yapping? Or do we take some of what he says quite seriously?
I think he's trying to balance different sentiments, like I said. I think it's really clumsy. What do you think, Win?
Oh, well, Borky was putting his hand up there. I don't think he wanted
Go on,
to leave
Borky.
the room.
No, I just have my fingers crossed when he just said Howe would leave.
I see. Right, well, I just think what we heard was a load of corporate speak culminating in the right now, all of us have only got so much bandwidth. Dear God, if that's not straight from company speak. And I think, to be fair, the PR, whoever's doing the PR at the club's doing a reasonable job, and they've said, by the way, the Sunderland defeat has gone down badly. Do you realise how badly? And I think that the mention of the Sunderland defeat was David Hopkinson kind of trying to appease that situation and say, look, listen, we do realise how much it means, even though they probably don't. But the PR people have told him, just double down on that one and say, we're really, really sorry for letting you down. And then he coupled that with an Eddie knows as well. So I don't know that it told us anything, to tell you the truth. But I'm more in the Tina camp that there seems to be a lot of forked tongues coming out. Saying one thing, doing the other. We hear all of these tales about PIF being full square behind the club. It's one of their flagship investments. They're in it for the long term. Let's see some proof. Let's see a spade in the ground somewhere.
Borky?
I think this is a big problem with the club. That you guys are kind of right. Hopkinson will come out and do all the media stuff really well. He's good at it. He's trained up in it. He knows exactly how he's doing it. But that's the same with Eddie Howe, and that's the problem with Eddie Howe. There's no passion there. What you need is somebody who'll come out and actually stand up for himself. Be willing to. If I was a manager and I was sitting there, my boss was contradicting us on every point and was saying, "Oh, we're not sure if we want to keep hold of this guy or not." Walk away. He's all said all season, all the happy clappers, other clubs will be shouting out for to get him. Other clubs will want Eddie Howe so much. Don't put up with this from him. Don't put up with this from Hopkinson, Come out and show some passion. Come out and show some passion. Remember back to the days when managers have been willing to walk away because the board weren't willing to back them.
What did that do for us?
Eddie Howe will just sit there but that's not the point. The point is the manager's got no passion.
Point.
It's not. Well, no, it's not.
I don't care what managers do after they leave us. I care about the impact it has on Newcastle
I'm not
United.
talking. Hang on. I'm not talking about when he leaves. I'm talking about while he's here. I'm saying
Yeah,
come
but
out and show
okay,
some passion. Come out and show some passion. No, let us finish the point. Come out and show some passion. Come out and say, look, I'm manager. I want us to succeed. Yes, you're saying there was money there. No, there wasn't money there. You're coming out and saying this about me. I've got complete passion. I hated the loss against Sunderland. He's done none of that. He's just all of them are just media trained to sit back and take a little bit of bite off each other, and there's nothing said about it.
I
As
mean,
I
what I
say,
would
a
say though,
No,
passionate
no.
manager,
Hopkinson said
a
Eddie felt
passionate
it
manager.
too.
No, but a passionate manager will come out and say there is no chance he's talking about me like that.
yeah, but Borgie, right on that point. I mean, I'm gonna kind of come back on that in terms of, or come back round on that in terms of Eddie Howe's is docile, maybe mannerisms, if you put it that way. Before I do, got a super chat there. So Wazza, Christina, summer. Well, I don't know why.
Summer boot camp tickets now available.
I don't know why he's saying that, Wazza, but I really appreciate it anyway. Cheers, mate.
If you're interested in Christina's summer boot camp, send me an email. I'm sure I can figure something out.
I think he said he's buying you a pair of Prada shoes for Christmas, Tina.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Wazza. I look forward to receiving them.
Top man. Yeah, so with Eddie Howe, I think to go back to Paul Mitchell, he did come out and say, look, I want to be here. I love this club. I love being here, but it needs to be right for me to work properly at this club. And he kind of publicly did question, essentially, Darren Neils and Paul Mitchell when that was a right mess where Darren Neils appointed the DOF clearly without having a conversation with Eddie Howe in terms of what the parameters were going to be and how they were going to change. So Eddie Howe did come out then, I think, and said, look, I'm not really happy with this. I do agree in terms of his demeanour. It isn't obviously like a Kevin Keegan or Sir Bobby when Sir Bobby got riled up. I get that point, but I do though think that Eddie Howe, in his own way, I think he is passionate about the club, and I think he's intense about the club. And I think to come full circle, I go back to that Carabao game. I think he's kind of too intense at times in terms of I want this to work. I need to win the next game because I think he is genuine that way. But Eddie Howe got burnt out at Bournemouth. He admitted this himself because he is so intense, because he put so much work in for where he is. And I go back to the Carabao game, and this is quite a flippant sort of obscure moment. But in that game, the teams came out the tunnel and they were lining up with local hero playing, etc. And the Leazes End unfurled a banner that covered the whole of Leazes End with Eddie Howe, clenching his fist. So it was a tribute to Eddie Howe. And it was in your face. You couldn't miss it, really. But at the end of the game, Eddie Howe was asked, oh, so what do you make that banner for you? And he was like, what banner? I didn't see it. And in the Leazes End, there was a massive 100-foot banner. And I was like, again, he's like, oh, I'm concentrating on the game when I come out the tunnel. I'm just thinking, Eddie, the players warming up. I know you're intense. I know you're all in. But just take a pull back, take in the ground. Do you know what I mean? And just absorb it. And I just think that's where Eddie Howe, maybe he's too intense and he could get burnt out again, like he did at Bournemouth.
If you think Eddie Howe didn't see that banner and know what it meant, I don't think.
Why did you say
because that's just Eddie Howe. He doesn't like stepping forward. Can you remember the Tottenham game?
I know, that's absolute rubbish.
And
Absolutely.
he had to be pushed. He had to be pushed forward.
North. Hang on, you're saying he didn't see that he's seen that banner, but then came out after the game and said he didn't.
That's right.
Why?
Because he doesn't like plaudits. He finds praise.
But he would have just
hang on, no. But he knows how much war flags put into each game. Everybody at that club knows how much they put in. And he turns around and disrespects him by saying, "No, I didn't see it."
He's not disrespecting them. Don't put those words out, man. For God's sake.
Well, but he is hang on. If he's seen that and didn't have enough respect to say it, thank you very much. It was very much appreciated. That is disrespecting war flags. If he's seen that, if what your point you're making is he's seen that and didn't acknowledge it, that is disrespectful to those lads who
Well,
spent
I
hours
disagree.
who will know flags. So how can you disagree with that? How's it not
Because
disrespectful?
what I'm saying is Eddie finds praise difficult. I know lots of people on this.
He's modest.
Sadly, I'm not one of them. Eddie finds it very difficult to praise.
But hang on, no. All he didn't have to be disrespectful. All he had to come out and say was, "I seen those." Well, he was because he came out and says, "I
No, he
didn't
wasn't.
see it." If he had seen it, if you're saying he's seen it and he just didn't acknowledge it, that is disrespectful. All he had to say was, "I loved it. It was fantastic." You know, there was no need to just not acknowledge the fact he'd even seen it. That is completely disrespectful if that's the case.
All right.
And do you know what?
Okay.
I don't think Eddie Howe's
Okay,
done that.
okay, it's disrespectful. Fair enough.
But no, I don't think Eddie Howe's done that. I
That's
really
your
do think
opinion.
but no, I don't think he has done that. I think he just hasn't seen it and he hasn't been able to acknowledge it, which is Tim says because he's so intense into the game. But saying he did see it and didn't acknowledge it is a complete different case.
Yeah, I mean, I think he
That's what
didn't
you
see it.
think, Smashing.
And I just think point I'm making is that, do you know what I mean? He's so intense. He's probably thinking of the touchline. Okay, what about this? What about that? This formation, this player. You know what I mean? And I just think,
I agree with that as well.
yeah, he's putting himself in. And I'm coming back to your point, Borky, that I do think he's passionate. I do think he is, but it's in his own way, his own reserved way. And I think he is all in. And I'll always have massive respect for Eddie Howe. Absolutely. And like I say, if he goes for me, it's a golden handshake. But I just think he needs to pull back. And those moments are kind of special moments. And I think, I'm just thinking, Eddie, take it in a bit, drink it in a bit, you know? And I think this next season, right, for me, I don't know about yourselves, but it's starting to feel a little bit like Sir Bobby's last season. Remember that summer where we had Freddie Shepherd's and Freddie
Remember
Shepherd.
that summer very
He
clearly, which is why I'm
Yes.
so reluctant to jettison him.
Yeah. Freddie Shepherd, I think, probably wanted to part ways with Sir Bobby, didn't have the stomach to do it.
Offered him the
And-
job upstairs.
Yeah, and said, here's some money to spend, but I'm going to sign some players myself as well, allegedly, and kind of stepped on his toes a bit. And then 4 games in, yep, you haven't won, I'm not happy with this, see you later. And it was just a mess, total mess. I mean, for me, we cannot be doing that. We absolutely cannot be doing that. So, like, next season, how do you see next season going? Win? So, do you just say that as long as we're not fighting relegation or we're bottom 6, bottom 8, do you then just allow Eddie Howe to give him the full season like we probably should have with Sir Bobby if we decided to give him that last season?
No, I like my line in the sand will be the same again if we're not within 3 points of the Champions League at Christmas after the Christmas fixtures. I'm Eddie out now.
You said Eddie out now, then you changed your mind.
Well, that's because we were within 3 points of the Champions League at Christmas.
Are we within 3 points of the Champions League now?
No, we're not now.
And how many
It's not
games have we got
Christmas
left?
now.
How many games have we got left now?
We've got 7 games left.
So why your expectations dropped so much that you thought we could be really in with a chance of
I
Champions
still think
League
we
at
can
this
get in the
time?
Champions League.
No, but I'm saying why your expectations dropped so much. Why don't you think we should be in 3 points within the Champions League positions now?
Because that's not the way seasons go. They go up and down.
So you were willing for it to be 3 points near Champions League at Christmas, then just completely drop off and be 12th in the league by the time we got to this time this season. Was that your expectations?
Yeah, and let's see where we are.
They were your
And
expectations.
my
right?
next line in the sand is the end of the season.
That's a big class answer. That you were so basically you wanted within the Champions League positions, but then to fall off completely and be 12th in the league by the time we got to this time this season.
Well, obviously, no, that's not what I wanted. But that's what happens in football.
So what's your new do you have a goal set for the end of the season where if it's not achieved then you don't like Eddie, but if it is achieved you do like Eddie?
It's pointless because he'll change it anyway.
No, but I want to hear it.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know Bogey's already he was Eddie Howe out from the start.
If we don't get Europe this season, I'm Eddie out.
Okay. If we don't get Europe,
That's the
but that
absolute,
does that include
you know,
conference?
for me, that's the minimum requirement.
Does that
Just
include
to-
conference?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to say, 3 of the current England back 4 are all Newcastle players at the minute.
Get
Last time
in!
that happened.
It is quality, isn't it? You know, we can say what we
Oh,
want
it's
about
big-
the season, but it
big
is
Dan
great
on.
to see. So we got Big Dan on and Hall left back and Tino right back. Yeah.
Mind you, we might want to keep this quiet because we are still
No,
losing
I think
1-0.
I think they're putting Hall into midfield and playing Burnett left back.
There's no way they're doing that. There's no way they're doing that.
God. Yeah.
Tim,
So
do you have an answer to that? Just before we move on, because I know Borky's stance on it, and I've just asked Wins, but since you're the host for the night, and since we don't often get to indulge in your presence, where do you stand on that? Do you have a goal that if it wasn't accomplished by the end of the season, you would want Eddie Howe to leave the club, or?
I wouldn't. For me, I don't think of it like so rigidly in that way. You know,
I'm
like the
same,
difference.
yeah.
Yeah, between like 6th and 7th or 8th and 9th,
6,
etc.
7.
Oh God, I've walked into that one. Yeah, like I kind of look at the last few years, and I look at all the obviously it's been brilliant on paper. It's been superb, and I just think all the positives and the negative patterns. You know, what's the scales like with those two elements, and all their negatives there, and also in conjunction with what we discussed tonight in terms of bringing through more youth players, trying to battle at the top in this PSR world or whatever it's called now. All their elements there with Eddie Howe, negatives. Every manager has negatives, but are his negatives going to outweigh his positives? Is it a trajectory that we can see that maybe things have went stale to the point where we might need a change? I think it depends on who you bring in. Like I've said a million times, I'll say it again. I do think Iriola would be a brilliant appointment. I think my gripe with Eddie Howe, okay, is I think he's got amazing qualities, and I don't really. It's hard in one way for me to argue too much against somebody who says no, keep Eddie Howe, and I would really love it if he stays and it works. Okay, I just think he doesn't like to play with a number 6. That's being clear. That's his preference, really. That has bitten us on the backside for a long time now. He doesn't like to play with a number 10. We're spending a lot of money on a striker, Voltemada, who clearly is best either with a number 10 or playing as a number 10. So that's a problem. And the rotation issue with regards to playing in Europe, we ultimately aspire to be playing in Europe on a regular basis. I think, unfortunately, Eddie Howe, because of his conservative nature when it comes to rotating players, and like I say, maybe operating from a place of fear at times in terms of not wanting to lose the next game, it's stagnated our progress in the league when we are in Europe. And I just wonder if he can adapt long term to that. So, was us in the building?
It's saying, who Tina's went all pressure on Pete. No, it's not even Pete, it's Tim.
Yep.
So you got that one wrong, was it?
As Bane says in the Dark Knight, that comes later. Yeah.
Prosaic's
with
offered
a
giving
gifted
another membership. Thank you, Prosaic. As always, what a great
Cheers.
supporter of the channel you are.
Did I get their
And that
name
has-
wrong again?
That has gone to Sports and Nerdy.
Oh,
1701. There you go, Sports and Nerdy. Welcome to the channel.
What a
Please keep your
fantastic
membership
name.
up and get all the extra stuff that we've got for
Yep.
you.
thank you for answering, by the way, Tim.
You're
Very
welcome.
good answer.
Cheers. On that note, we've got Tam in the building.
How's it going, folks? How's it going?
You right?
What a day full of news, man. What a day full of news. It's like they just, set these days when there's no football to release everything on purpose. So, wonderful, wonderful day. Anyways, great job, early night show. Appreciate you very much, all of you, for doing the kind work. And now we shall continue, ladies and gents. Do not go anywhere. Stay tuned. Thank you very much, Tim and Peter, staying with us. They're, subbing each other out. And yeah, so thank you very much, all of you. And the late night show. Where's the intro? We got to play the right intro for the late night show. Late night show starts now, folks. Take care. Let's go.
Set up for maximum confrontation and super opinionated debates. The NUFC Late Night Show with Chris the American Man, Derek the Mighty Wind, and the rest of the panel, Monday through Thursday from 9:30 p.m. UK and UFC Talk Radio, the voice of the Toon Army.
Right on, the voice of the Toon Army, live all the way through to 11 p.m. UK, folks. Welcome, one and all. Smash that like button if you like what you see. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Don't forget, you can super chat and help the channel that way, and become a member. Very important. If you can do that. We got Ian, we got Sean, we got Peter, we got Boki, we got the Mighty Win, and man, a lot of things that the CEO came out and spoke about today. They didn't announce the stadium being sold to ourselves, but it was a good thing that they did that. I only agree with this if it's for the benefit as far as us being able to spend and use that money. Other than that, it's pointless and irrelevant. And I do have a question, because I, like everybody else here, because Win doesn't know anything about finances, nothing. So don't trust him as far as you can throw him. But I do have a question for the panel, because the rumor, the CEO didn't say this, but Craig Hope has come out and said, for example, that if Newcastle would almost certainly have failed PSR for 24-25 without selling St. James's Park to ourselves. Isak was sold this, was it? No, not this year. It was last summer, and that was July, right? If I'm not mistaken.
No, but he didn't go in July.
When was he sold to? When was he sold?
The financial year finished on the 30th of June.
Last day of the season.
Yeah. So because I want to know, because I don't think we've spent the Isak money yet, and I read somewhere else as well that because of what we did with St. James's Park, we are now able to spend. But nobody's speaking of the Isak money. We certainly didn't spend on Voltamara and Wissa, because that money was just, I'm assuming you need time to process and everything else. You don't just make a sale and all of a sudden entitled to spend all that money. And so nobody talks about that money. What's going on there?
That's the Isak money.
What?
Well, 130 million or 120 million, whatever you want to believe, is the Isak money. Out of the 250 we spent, that's all in the same financial year. That's all in.
Can you sell a player? So is that automatic? That you sell a player right now, and the next day you can buy it on Wissa and Walter Matas? That's how it works.
Well,
you're accounting for it.
That is how it works, but that's not exactly the way it works.
What your terms are.
No, because I'm pretty sure you got to wait.
Your terms are when you're buying a player. If they want.
I didn't think any of those figures actually included in the year that's been released today.
No, they're not. None of them are.
No, they're not.
No,
they're not.
Yeah, it's
a
lot
not included.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm saying, so I just know, because I don't want this to go on and we forgot about the Isak money, and we don't have money to spend, and we got money to spend. We got the Isak money to spend.
They said that in that financial statement.
There is no excuse, is what I'm trying to get at, for us not buying players or being in PSR trouble. Right? I mean, we all in agreement with that. Like, we're not going to get this thing that, we can't spend, and PSR is an issue, and because the manager comes out and speaks about that every time he loses a derby. So, as long as we're not getting into that.
Can I just ask Win a quick question on this one? Because he brought out the points that we couldn't afford to buy better players in the transfer window. If all that money's there, why couldn't we afford to buy better players than we did?
What do you mean? Why couldn't we afford to buy better players than we did?
Well, for example, I said get a better replacement for J7. I said get somebody who's going to actually replace him in the team. Spend an extra £30 million. They could have afforded to do that. Why didn't we?
Well, obviously they hadn't identified anybody.
It wasn't a money problem. We just didn't want to do it. Big Worm says, was the Isak money all paid in one lump? I'm pretty sure it was. I don't think it had any ties, any payment plans or anything when it came about. Thank you, Andy Bill, for being a member for 23 months. Says Tuchel laughing all the way to the back after a new contract. 4 lost in the comment. What's going on?
It's because it's 1-0 to Japan still, Chris.
It's,
We're in the
yeah, still
92nd minute.
Yeah, still 1-0. Not everybody can beat Japan.
But hang on. This is in England.
That's a dark
joke.
In
England.
That's a dark joke, man. That's a dark joke. That's a dark joke. Hey, the Japanese don't want to see us. Trust me. No, the Japanese Prime Minister was in the White House the other day. Anyway, 10 pound super chat there. Thank you very much, Random Access. Thank you, mate. Appreciate you very much indeed. Bring in your super chats. Bring in your requests. Bring in requests. We don't have no music today, but bring in super chats, memberships, everything else involved. Get in and support the channel. Thank you very much. Says, mark my words, Eddie Howe will definitely go, or he won't. I know about these things. Says Random Access. Thank you very much. We're going to talk about this whole thing. Peter's in there. Sean is there waiting quietly for their moment. We're gonna get to everybody, of course. But there's a lot of things that have happened today. A lot of things that the CEO spoke about. A lot of things that I was reading social media. There was a couple of fans saying, "Well, why didn't we know, or why were we not told that St. James's Park was being sold?" Some people say it's irrelevant. Some people say fans don't need to know. Some fans do feel like they need to know. So it's just, how do you guys feel about that? And yeah, I mean, it feels like we do a lot of looping around, which is fine. Again, it's fine. But there's a lot of negotiating for deals, sponsorships. I mean, I understand that this is just a loophole to make it seem like we made profit. We didn't make no profit, though, because we just paid ourselves. So money is it's just it's a mask, if you will. So but what about the bringing in revenue for sponsors, from all that? Why is that taking too long? That's some of the things that I'm hearing from fans, that I'm reading from fans, and not your regular drunkard that win meets on a daily basis. I'm talking proper fans that have concerns about Newcastle United. So, I mean, what do you guys make of it? Let me start from the bottom up. Let me start with Peter. When you've been speaking for an hour and a half, mate, let's give you a bit of a rest. Peter, what do you think about? I mean, what do you make of the whole story? I mean, it was shocking to know St. James's Park had been sold. I mean, to us, but it was a bit weird, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think Tina made a good point earlier, because the CEO, Hopkinson, he was talking about the fact that there was money to spend in the January window, wasn't he, when he went on Talk Sport? Now, it just seems, when you think back in hindsight, was that the case or not? Because are we right to assume that if we hadn't have done this with the stadium, potentially this season we might have been in trouble with PSR? Is that right?
Yeah. Well,
so
yeah.
The
but
timing
the thing
is a bit weird.
Well, I was going to say,
it is right. I don't know if it is right.
Can I just drop a bit of breaking news?
I heard something where they said it wasn't. Go on.
Go on, Bogu. We got
a quick bit of breaking news. Japan won, England 0 final score.
How did you get beaten by Japan, man? That is criminal, man. That's unbelievable. And the Geordies were playing too, so I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. But right. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, when it comes to this, is it a good thing or bad thing? I think it's just a regular thing. I mean, business people will do this only if it benefits the club, Other than that, I mean, I don't know what to make of it. I mean, I like to know everything, especially if it's something that I care and value, and that people need me to contribute. I care to know. If for example, if all fans, we all contribute to Newcastle United. Without fans, football is irrelevant. It doesn't exist. Whether fans watching at home, going to the stadium, buying shirts, buying merchandise, fans are what moves this. So I would have cared to know. I mean, it was a bit shocking. Alex Hurst from the True Faith
True faith.
podcast mentioned that, you know, he would have liked to know. I mean, fans could be entitled to want to know. I mean, that's St. James's Park is a big. It's almost what do you call it? A great listed building. You know, to it would almost
Sacred.
it would almost be that. You know, it's not going anywhere. I mean, but it would have been nice to know.
Yeah, it does kind of. I think it ties in a bit with what people are saying about what people had been saying earlier over the course of the last maybe 12 months or so. That the club haven't. They seem to have not communicated very well with the fans like they used to, like Amanda did. I think it does seem to have dwindled a bit on that front. And I think maybe this story here kind of ties into that a bit. The fact they've sold St. James's, then leased it back, then not releasing that information. Yeah, it is a bit strange. I mean, why not? Why not just tell the fans and keep the fans? Keep them up to date and make them feel like they are part of the club. It's just one of those things that helps fans kind of feel part of it all, that they're up to date with what's going on, you know? So,
There you go.
yeah. Yeah, it is a strange one.
The fans.
No,
I'm over the moon, mate, because it shows for months
of all,
and months we've been saying that PIF haven't been doing anything to get round these PSR loopholes.
Are you kidding me?
That tells me, by the way, that that's another £172 million they put into the club.
Yeah, I'm not
transfer
saying
money
that's
from. No, they haven't, man. They transfer money from one place to the other. That's not. That doesn't. We didn't make money off of it. Money wasn't really made. It just transferred from one account to the other. Listen, I know about this.
Money was made.
No, it was. I mean, imaginary money that counts. That's the best way to put it. But Newcastle United did an extra company that was somewhere else that has nothing to do with us. Didn't give us money. It's the same thing as me super chatting here. It's actually losing money, actually, but it's about the same thing. You know, it counts as revenue, but it's not really revenue because it came out of my pocket. So
it came out of PIF's pocket, and it prevented us getting.
Which is fine. It's a loophole, but first of all, you're talking about over the moon parading and all that. I don't understand that part, but that's just a mental problem that you got. It's whatever. It's fine. It's a loophole, Sean. It's all right, but I would also like to see. By the way, it took him long enough, didn't it? You know, the Chelsea already did all the hard work. City already in court, so it took him long enough to do one thing. But what about the sponsorship? I mean, is that hard to find sponsorship? God knows it is hard. Sean, what do you think, man?
I think it's a good idea, but what I was reading earlier online was they sold the stadium as well, because obviously for a UEFA, so we don't get a hefty fine from that as well, because of the fact that we've gone over the budget.
That is true, actually, because UEFA, that's a very good point, because UEFA, I got the information somewhere, that UEFA might be looking to sanction, or get us in trouble because
Craig Hope has come out, you know, in the last couple of hours and said that it doesn't save us from UEFA sanctions.
Well, here we go.
Martin to get a £5 million fine from UEFA.
Can we just quickly do what I was saying, Super Chat there? Win, mate.
Yeah,
you can keep your hat on, cowboy. I think that's from the full Monty, isn't it?
That's the England hat. I've been sweating in it
anyway.
Well,
well, here's the thing, but let me make this clear. There's no corruption. There's no corruption when it comes to this. It's actually a loophole. Businessmen do it all the time. Do it. I do it in personal in my personal life. I mean, if it's legal and it's a loophole, then it is what it is. There's nothing wrong about it. But you know, I am in a position to question as a fan. Everybody does it. Win just flows with the win. Whatever they tell him, he believes. But you know, it would have been nice to know. Sean, would you have liked the club to announce, say, listen, we're going to do this? You know.
Well, yeah, obviously it would be nice to be told. Like with Amanda being there, like I said, with Peter, we used to find out a lot of stuff. Since she's left, it's gone very quiet, very dull. And it seems like some parts, PFI don't know what they're doing.
PIF.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like that, you know what I mean?
Proves it.
It does.
Yeah. So, I mean, Ian, what do you think? What is your thoughts on this? There's a delay between us, but go on.
I think this, from what I heard, and I haven't fully researched it, it's just out today, isn't it? And I was at work, so I've not heard a lot of it. Is it Kappa is the guy who's announced it, and it's not a big deal. It's a realignment of the company that is holding the property interest, and it has more of a benefit in the future and makes more sense in the way that they account for things in the future for them to have moved it a 72-year lease, and then Newcastle have taken a shorter lease on St James's Park. That's where they've saved their cash.
Yeah.
I don't think it has a massive PSR implication at all. But what is far more important, I think you were starting to talk about it, Chris, is, a training ground sponsor, training kit sponsor. I mean, if they announced a new stadium, they could have a new stadium sponsor 3 years before they've built it. It could be referred to, as I said, as the Greg's Newcastle United Stadium, just because it's a concept. And there's cash to be made on that, which is cash every year. It's establishing a new income stream, which is there. It's fixed. It's not one of these one-off jiggery-pokery sleight of hands things. It's sponsorship money that just keeps coming in, and that does impact the PSR year on year on year on year, etc. After all of this time, we've left a lot of money on the table.
Yeah, well, I mean, that part is the weird situation that we can't find sponsorships, and I don't know why. They have presented the clubs, so I thought the name was Kappa, as in CAPPA. That's Italian. Capper, I don't know why that's Italian, but so that was the difference. Okay, they have presented the club's latest accounts showing the record turnover 335 million. An increase of 15 million of 23-24. So, but I mean, it is what it is. They put out the books and they did this.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I'm not like, I can see in the chat obviously a few opinions coming in there about fans needing to know all the details all the time. Like, look, I'm not sitting here saying like stomping my feet, kind of kicking off the fact that why didn't I know about that? It doesn't really bother me, to be honest, but I think it's a fair, also at the same time, it's a fair point, I think, just to observe and mention how, there are some fans out there, I think, who do like to kind of be kept in the loop on these matters. And it's just, Newcastle United is it's a part of the community, isn't it? Like, it's just some fans just all in. And yeah, I think it would have been nice for I think a lot of fans to kind of just been updated on that. Again, I'm not too fussed myself. I think I'm more worried about if we're going to pick the bones out of like PIF and what they're doing, what they're not doing, what they're saying, what they're not saying. For me, my major kind of, I guess, frustration is that I think it's strange how they haven't tied down, like you mentioned before, Chris, sponsorship, training ground sponsorship, and also training gear sponsorship. That to me is a bit of a strange one, because they've had a fair bit of time now, and like that is nothing new. I mean, clubs have been doing that for donkey's years now. Like Liverpool, Man United, they've had training gear sponsorships for since, I don't know, since about 20, I would say 13, 14. So yeah, that's more of a strange one for me. The fact that we haven't done that.
Can I just say, it's strange how, we have all these leaks. We have these leaks about the fact that there's going to be a new stadium in the areas they're going to be in, or there's going to be a new training ground, the area that's going to be in. And this comes from local journalists, obviously getting information from the club. What's really strange is none of those journalists got the leak that would sold St. James's Park to ourselves. The club's obviously getting really good at releasing things to promote what fans want to hear, but also getting good at not putting things out that maybe fans wouldn't find as good a news.
Right. Well, that's a good point, but I would also say that that's such a intricate, like very high level stuff that, I mean, you were really being the transfer ownership would be PIF and not ownership, sorry. Sale would be PIF and maybe not even. It wouldn't have to let the CEO know because it's just they're owners, so it's very high top level stuff that. But yeah, you could have a point. I mean, the fact that they want to let us know what they want, I don't think that's anything out of the realm of possibilities. I think that's just very much what everybody does, good or bad. And just like they told the reporters, they could have told the fans. More of a direct message, if you will, or put up a statement. It didn't have to be anything crazy. To all our fans, excluding Wynn, who doesn't care about the club. We sold the club to make, a couple, they could have done it. But Wynn, actually, you need to have your say because I don't know if you guys mentioned earlier, but basically you're the only one, you're the odd man out here. You care less about what the club does. So you can sell your soul for money for all you care.
I think we've always done better when the club keep their cards close to their chests.
What,
who knows it? If they'd made an announcement months ago when it was planned, would the Premier League not have got together and said, "Whoa, hey, we can't have them doing this. Let's bring in a rule that says you can't sell your stadium."
Yeah, but you're talking about something that...
Hang on. That was covered off because the Premier League actually had to sign this off, and it was a 6 months that they were aware what was happening.
Yeah, but when at the point they had to sign it off, it was on existing rules. If they'd known it was in the pipeline, they could have introduced new rules to stop it happening.
That's a very conspiratorial, if you will. But I mean,
damn right, it's conspiratorial.
But I mean, do you want to address the point that you're the odd man out, trying to sell your club, your soul?
How am I the odd man out?
So, most fans would have liked to know. Not even about.
But we know. We've just found
not
out.
Even. Yeah, but this is about season 24-25 when it's been ages since then. It's rained since then, man, as we say here in the South. So it's a long time ago. They could have been announced.
You've also got business confidential things to worry about in terms of share price. If somebody knew about it and leaked it, could they have bought shares, etc., etc., etc.
So in which case can we rule out any of this talk that's going on about new stadium and new training facilities? Because it would be exactly the same for that. So in which case is all that just BS from the local press?
No, because it's in that statement.
Look,
it's actually.
I think
it's one of the key points in their. Let me get this.
No, please don't do that to me. The fact that you did that to Christina and Boki and Tim is just shameful, man.
That's that key point.
The key points that you made with AI. And come on, man.
The stadium sale has facilitated a green light for summer spending. Stadium expansion studies are now being funded. And CEO David Hopkinson is in place. That's all going to go on in 2026.
Right. So on top of all the money that we're going to be able to spend, because we did this with the stadium, which should be a lot of money. I mean, if you just the sale alone was what 100 and how much?
Well, we made 172 million from it.
Okay, 172 million. Is that no? Okay, on top of that, you got to add the Isak money. That means Newcastle United have money to spend on Mbappe if we wanted to. So there is zero excuses for PSR. When the manager comes out and speaks after a derby that the PSR has held us back, a very not so prudent statement after being thrashed, it's all rubbish. Because it's all rubbish. Right
How's it
now,
rubbish?
we should be able to spend on whatever player we want to. We should go out there and get, if they
But
want
I
to come,
think-
of course.
But I think the club acts quite slow, don't we? If you know what I mean, we act slow in the transfer. This stadium should have been done 2 years ago. In with it, not now, kind of thing. I know it should be now, but they were saying it ages ago. It should have been come in, get a plan done, but it just seems to be delayed upon delayed, and I feel like they do a slow process.
All I'm saying is I'm trying to rule out these excuses by the summertime get here. I'm just saying there's no PSR problems no more with Newcastle United. We should get any players that we.
Chris. Here's the thing: Hopkinson did also say that they're going to have to trade, and he seemed to imply that includes not just buying but selling. So actually, to me, it sounds like that they may need to sell if they're going to get the players they want to get in. So I don't know who's going to have to do the calculations on this to get a definite answer, but it seems like,
and on top of that, we looks like we're going to have to spend money on replacing players as opposed to adding players because some might be leaving and some don't want to sign a contract, and so it's like as I mentioned yesterday, we're on a hamster wheel and we ain't going nowhere. But let's dissect the interview of the CEO and some quotes that are that could be alarming for some happy clapping fans, especially one there, the Baldy, and some in the chat, because he's spoken about Eddie Howe's future. And the question, do you have an update on Eddie Howe's future? Hopkinson said, I don't have a stance on his future, which that alone,
we are knackered.
I mean, you come out with that but let's put more context into it. What I can tell you is that the Derby loss hurt. We take it seriously. There's nothing within us that thinks, well, it's just 3 points and on we go. It has resonated. I spent a couple of hours in a one-on-one lunch recently with Eddie, and we talked through a multitude of things, including that. He's quoted saying, Eddie's our manager. I expect to have a great run at the end of the season. And we'll talk about the future when it's time. Right now, we're focused on this season's competition. There's a question on that, but another question that we're going to get to. But what do you make on those statements? I mean, does it feel like the CEO and cronies is cronies a bad word? Like, okay, so it's not like a mafiosi word, cronies, or could it be taken that way? Because I like the CEO, I got his number, so I don't want him to watch this and not talk to me again. Never mind. But so is he trying to create space now, saying, look, he's gonna have to get it together? What do you guys make of that? Are we seeing separation a little bit? Like when guilty by association type thing. What do you guys make of those statements? Because it was a bit odd. I mean, because usually, if you believe in the guy, you say, look, his future is not at risk. He's our guy. He can sort this out. But he's saying, I don't have a stance on his future to begin with. What do you make? Are you shaking in your boots?
Pure corporate speak. Pure corporate.
Love it.
Culminating in his, we all only have a certain wavelength.
Let's get to the super chats before we do too much on the conversation. Hold on, let me get to the super chats first.
Chris, don't mess with the baldies, says one.
There you go.
There you go. Andrew Bell says, by the way, Wayne, HR does payroll also, despite what Tom says. Of course they do.
That might be in the UK, but in America we like to keep things separate, baby. Anyway, well, I'm generalizing anyway, but thank you very much. So there you go. So what do you guys make of the statements? Come on, man.
Say, Chris, I was going to say that it's a long way away from Hopkinson blowing the smoke up Eddie Howe's bottom. when he was on Talksport a month or two ago. I think he said it's not on our thoughts at the moment. We want to see how we get through to the end of the season. There's a challenge
Right
there
too.
on these next 7 games. Faff around and lose 2 more at home and pick up 3 draws and a win. And I think he's out on his ear. I think we'll do the review. He won't qualify for Europe. I think Europe of some description is an absolute essential. And if he doesn't get it, they will invite somebody in to spend this money and start again. But,
Ooh.
that's the challenge he's got. He's training them now every week. So what we've got, 7 wins to come. I just think that it was a really good
So
thing to say, because we really don't want stuff to just peter out. And people say from the start of April that we're on the beach. We want something to be bloody playing for through to the end of the season.
you
And if
you
he can't in that context galvanize his squad, then he's gone as far as he can go. I think that was
so
what
you
I
are
read from it.
you are putting you are seeing the CEO
Totally different
separate
approach.
himself from the Eddie Howe happy clapping love making agenda that Win participates in on a daily basis. So I mean, come on, let's get in. I mean, Peter, Sean, Win, Boki. I mean, what?
Aye.
I think that's what he was when he was on Talksport, and I think he's definitely distanced himself today and thrown a gauntlet down and told how to get on with it,
Yeah.
and get on with it successfully. If it fizzles out, he'll have some hard talking to do to convince them to be trusted with another rebuild and next season. I think.
Go on, Peter.
I think that he will know that it would be naive of him to come out now and say, yeah, Eddie's the man for next season, no questions asked, no doubt about it, because he will look at this campaign, he'll look at where we are right now in the league table, and I think even if they want to keep Eddie Howe and back him, which they may well do, but I think he also is smart enough to know that at some level they have to sit down in the summer and assess. You know what I mean? And for all he knows, we might even finish 13th, 14th. It's not beyond the realms of possibility. So for him to come out, I think, and to just say we unequivocally just back Eddie Howe, I think he also probably would know that it might not have gone down too well if he'd said that. So I think he's trying to juggle, he's trying to balance, kind of like keeping the fans on side and just focusing on this season. But I just think the way he said it is kind of, he's thrown a bit of a grenade in the room, because to say,
Yeah.
I have
Ticking time bomb.
like I have no stance on Eddie Howe. It's like, wow, like, come on, man, you don't. It's a bit clumsy, that. Like, yeah. So I think he could have worded it better.
That's good. Sean?
See, I was thinking that as well, but I was also thinking, if they sack Eddie Howe, he doesn't want to take responsibility. Is that the kind as well? He's a new
You think
guy.
so?
Yeah, because like you say, if you're going to back him, just say we're backing him. But he's kind of distanced himself away from the situation.
Well, you know why, Sean? Because at some point, mate, when the boat is sinking, you just got to start swimming, man. You do not, you ain't got time to save nobody else. When the house is on fire, you get the wife and the kids out, and that's it. You're done. Some people will go down with the boat. That's Win, knackered. But I'm telling you, Win, it's just, we can see this from far away, man. And now you still haven't woke up, I think, from the situation. But what you got something to say about that? You're for quiet, by the way, when speaking about Eddie Howe's future.
I couldn't disagree with anything they did. If we finish 12th, 13th, or 14th, he's got to go.
Now, but what about Eddie Howe saying and speaking about? Well, once again about PSR and many people, journalists.
They were singing from different hymn sheets. Hopkins
okay,
said
right,
there was money, and we now know that there wasn't.
Well, there was, because this sale was for 24-25 season, man. So that's how long ago?
Well, it finished in June, but they've only just
Well,
balanced.
Hang on,
we'll
Win. Hang on, Win.
we'll wait for you to think.
January window. This January window wasn't included in these financial figures, if I'm right.
Correct.
So, but hold on.
So you're talking rubbish. So you don't know that there wasn't money available. In fact, talking from those figures, there should have been a hell of a lot of money available. So if anybody's been talking rubbish, it's Eddie Howe.
Well, by the fact that we spent on Voltamar and we have spent 250 million, that means there was money. So that just
do I need to do a little graph on this or a little PowerPoint presentation?
Gemini's knackered, man. Gemini's got a cigarette out.
I've got your presentation, especially for you, Boogie.
Go on then.
Gemini's got a
Greg
cigarette.
Roll Stadium.
Oh, that would do me,
what
mate.
the heck is that, man?
As long as there's no vegan in there for 18, or I'll be there all week.
But
that's especially for you.
Unfortunately, I don't know. You can correct me, but unfortunately, Greg ain't got that kind of money to sponsor Newcastle United.
Win. You were ready to jump in there and say 100%. Howe was right. Was Howe actually wrong? Was the money available? Is that proof that there was money available from the figures that have been released?
Well, I don't know. But was he? We weren't told. Was he told?
Oh.
So you're saying the club are now hiding things from Eddie Howe?
Could be.
But what about everybody? Hold on, though. My question is, because the CEO is backing away. What about the argument that a lot of people used to back Eddie Howe, that said, well, he was left stranded. That he had to do this role, that role. He had to do everything, and nobody backed him. Well, it seems like if that was true, if I'm the CEO, I'm like, come on, man, I can't leave this guy stranded because he has been dealing with all this. So I'm just going to back him and give him another season. So apparently, all of that suffering that Eddie Howe did in the background wasn't really real.
Well, everything that we're hearing from every journal who's got sources is saying that the club are full square behind Eddie Howe.
Here's the thing, right? I think that, I do believe that. I do think that the will of sympathy with what happened last summer, and Hopkinson now, I think he'll look at it and think, in an ideal world, we've got a DOF now that is settled at the club. We're going into the summer where we've got a CEO, we've got a DOF. I think he'll probably look at it and think, in an ideal world, we go again, and when Eddie gets back this time, and I know people will say he spent 250. Don't get me wrong. I know he spent money in the last summer. When I say back, I just mean as in we've got a structure in place now that we didn't have last time. So I think Hopkinson might look at that and, like you say, Chris, and think, yeah, we need to kind of like do things properly this time. But I also think that he will look at the performance of the team this season, and he'll think to himself, ultimately, we have to sit down and assess everything. So that's not just players, it's management, it's, do you know what I mean? It's everyone's performance. So I think deep down, maybe that's why he's not committing, like, publicly, because he knows he has to kind of weigh things up and see where we finish, and judge it then. I also think it probably wouldn't go down too well off the back of losing against Sunderland to come out and because obviously there's a lot of unrest off that and off the way the season's gone. So
as you clearly mentioned, he doubled down. He didn't just not, he was like very like, I have no stands on his future. Matter of fact, he was questioned. He was asked another question right after that. It says, what does the summer look like? Is there a capacity? Oh, actually, hold on. This one right here. Can you clarify your comments about the manager? It seemed you were leaving it open, saying his future will be assessed in the summer, which really, what's wrong with that? But he said, I would not frame it that way. We are not looking to make a change at the moment. We're not having those conversations. We are still in the midst of the season. Right now, we are focused on 7 matches we have remaining and not distracting ourselves with speculation about what we may or may not do in the summer. Right now, all of us have only got so much bandwidth we only got so much bandwidth, and we are focused on this season and finish it strongly. When right there, he is doing something you said he shouldn't do before, which is he's not looking other options. He's not looking for another man. He's not looking, which you said he should be talking to other managers, but he's not even looking. So, you know, no, he shouldn't actually. That's rubbish, man. You're supposed to make the right decision, man.
So you don't start looking for another manager until you've sacked him.
No, I think he should. I think you still have options, but you shouldn't be negotiating with other managers.
Well, what's negotiating? What's talking?
Talking. Why would you talk to a manager when you have one in charge, man?
Well, to see whether they're open to, in the event that.
No, what?
Seriously.
No, I'm telling. Yeah, seriously.
You're saying that Newcastle United shouldn't be approaching any other managers or agents of managers.
No.
Whilst Eddie Howe is manager.
You should run your options. You should have your options ready. So
how are you going to have your options?
But when can I just ask you a quick question on that? If Ferguson had heard a rumour that Man United were approaching other managers when he was in charge, do you think he'd have sat there and put up with that? Do you think if Keegan went in charge, do you think if Keegan went, no, let's finish. Do you think when Keegan was in charge in Newcastle, he would have put up with hearing rumours that Newcastle United were looking at the managers? No chance. They were big name managers and they would not put up with it.
Earns his court.
Yeah. When the dude is gone, man.
Making those inquiries without them ever becoming public.
You can't. You can't.
Oh, mate.
You can do it with the stadium because it's between two big entities, two big, owners. They're not going to say nothing. They don't have to tell a journalist.
And who'll the deal with managers?
Well, hang on. Hold on.
Let me finish my point.
To you. Go on.
Let me finish my point, though. Because when you talk to managers and players, they have an interest to get more for their client and for themselves. They could care less about Newcastle United. They can just go on to Chelsea and say, look, we got this player. Newcastle want him. I think he should go with you. And then, therefore, everybody knows about it. So it's not the same as keeping a secret. Like, if you try to go and get a new manager, man, it will blow up in the media, and it would just be shambles. Total shambles. Well, Peter, you wanted to jump in on that.
Do you not think the likes of a Keegan, when he was Newcastle manager,
he would have left?
If he'd heard that we wanted Kenny Dalglish, which could have happened because they had mutual friends, he would have just said, "Bugger this."
Come on, man. I mean, Peter, go on.
Why? Back then, why would they be looking at another manager?
Peter, you've been smoking cigarettes, man. Stop smoking.
Also, you min up the fact we should be looking at another manager.
Oh my God. Let Peter talk, man.
What I would say, because we can kind of bring this argument into what just happened with Hopkinson. Okay, so I think with Hopkinson saying what he said, if it is the case that they want Eddie for next season, okay, and there are reports that is the route they're going down. In an ideal world, like I say, they might want to just give him another chance in this summer with a proper structure in place. Now, whether you agree with that or not, that's a different conversation, but I can believe that they may well want to give Eddie another chance. So if that is the case, let's just go on that assumption. I think Hopkinson's got to be very careful that he's not coming out with statements that kind of get Howe's back up, because if you're Eddie Howe, to me, Eddie Howe, like you have said with Keegan and managers of that ilk, I think Howe is kind of similar in where that he's all in, okay? And it only works if it's both ways. If he needs to know that the CEO or whoever the director is, they need to believe in him. And in turn, he will give 100%. And he's do you know what I mean? He's totally committed that way. But if he senses, I think if Eddie Howe, if he senses that there's a bit of deliberation and there's a bit of doubt, even if it's small, I think he will then.
That's bad.
I'm hearing you. Do you honestly not think that Eddie Howe, right at this minute in time, thinks that there's doubts about his abilities?
No, but that's not how life works.
I think Eddie knows.
Hopkinson, if Eddie Howe is working and grafting away 6 till 6, right, and then he gets wind that Hopkinson actually isn't. He's having a few doubts. There's everyone's different, right? Some managers might put up with that. I personally think Eddie Howe is the kind of manager who, if he gets wind of stuff like that, then he would say, "I'm sorry, but you have to believe in me for this to work. It has to be all in." And I think he would walk.
There's 96% of managers that will leave or be upset, throw their toes at the front when it comes to this stuff. That's it's just human nature, man. Because all of a sudden there's no belief. You're not believing in me because you wouldn't be talking, negotiating with somebody to come here, and you're basically waiting. You're waiting behind my back with the knife out for me to fail. That's what it is, man. It's not about Eddie Howe thinking he can do it. If he didn't think he could do it, he would have probably resigned. But that's not, man. It's insane. This, Sean, do you want to say?
See, I don't think Eddie Howe.
What was that super chat?
Oh, sorry, it was a super chat.
Bogey banned for eating the Gallagher. Oh, crumbs.
That was that was the Sausage Roll Stadium, I think.
Yeah. And was
that
celebrated?
Don't read that
one.
No, don't read that one, fool.
Oh.
Oh my God. Anyway, thank you for being a member for 20 months, though. I appreciate that, mate. But Sean, what do you got to say about that?
See, I think.
What's wrong with that? Was that celebrates 20 months of membership?
Dude, thank you, Watson, for being a member for 20 months. Sean.
See, I think Eddie Howe knows that he could be sacked at any time because he knows what the results. But I don't see him resign at this precise moment because you won't get that money. You know, when you resign, you lose that stuff. Getting sacked, you get paid out. So he's not going to walk.
I think in the summer, I think he would. I think he would forfeit that. Like if he felt like it was doubt from the people above, I just think he strikes me as that kind of manager. I think I agree most probably wouldn't, but he'd get plenty of offers elsewhere, and I just feel like, yeah, like you say, Chris, it's human nature. It's not just in football; it's in every kind of walk of life. You know?
Peter, I mean, if we're here, right? If I'm like, if I think win is rubbish, which I do, there's no secret there. But if I'm like trying to go around and tell them, you're doing a great job, man, don't worry, and then going over there and trying to get somebody else to replace him, it's just human nature. You're gonna feel like, what the heck, you know? I mean, it's so. And the fact that you don't believe, that's why Hazel told me Wynn has, well, she says Derek, calls him Derek. Derek is so smart, but he has, but talking about his ex-wife, by the way. He's so smart, but he has zero common sense. Because that's zero common sense right there. You don't go out there and try to talk to other managers, man. You don't go out there and get a new girlfriend while you're getting divorced. You got to get the papers done, which some people do, by the way. But, that's not, you know, you got to get the final papers, man.
There you've hit the nail on the head. If you're going to get a new bird and ditch your old one, you don't you don't let your current one, who's going to become your old one, know about it.
How about you don't cheat? How about that, man? Oh my God, this dude.
How's it cheating? It's future.
Are you serious? Oh my God, dude, this dude is just
Can I just say I've met Hazel and she's lovely, and you know, I can't agree with Wynn on this.
Oh, Hazel is a lovely, lovely lass, man. This dude is an idiot. But anyway, Super Mac, Ian, what do you got to say, man? You've been awful quiet there with the 2-hour delay.
I know. Where do I draw the line on that? I don't think he's out chatting to all of the managers around Europe to see who would be interested, if yet. I think he's honest. I think he said it's not in their thoughts at the moment. There's 7 games. What's that? Less than 2 months to go till the end of the season. Let's have a strong season. Let's see where we finish up. Let's see if we qualify for Europe. If we don't, then those conversations will be taking place. And I'm sure they've got a list of callbacks to make from agents of managers who have put themselves forward that they would be interested if the job came up for grabs. And that's when they'll start making the calls once they've taken the decision that Eddie Howe needs to be replaced. I don't think they'll be doing anything because somebody somewhere will speak, and that'll kill everything. You know, players get wind that the manager's on his last legs has stopped playing for the manager. I just think, yeah, I don't agree with you, Win. I don't think they're out
You are
shopping for new
knackered,
managers
Win.
whilst Eddie Howe's.
Win, you are shocking, man.
Or
I'm
they
telling
do
you, you are
or
shocking.
they do the opposite and say, hang on, what's he said? 7 games. Let's go and win those 7 games.
No, but how do you continue a relationship after you've been told they're looking for your replacement?
But
man?
haven't we had people talk about it though?
You
Paul
don't
Mitchell,
tell people, man.
didn't he come out and stuff about Eddie
He's
Howe?
going to find. There's no way you keep this as a secret. No way. Because if you go with any manager, it's going to get leaked, man. It's going to happen. Especially if you go and target somebody.
It proves you're not good at your job.
How can you not?
Listen, in the same way as I think the scouts should have. Well, and by the way, this falls into Ross Wilson's basket as well, of course. The scouts should be looking at players that we might not get, we might get, whatever. But
but that's different, though.
How is it different? I want the CAO to be ready. What happens if, supposing tomorrow, Barcelona came and said, Eddie, come to us, we'll treble your wages.
It would be equally as bad. It would be, by the way, thank you, Becca, for the super chat, and we threw Win in jail because of his rubbish statement that CEO needs to be looking for a manager right now. Or not looking, talking, he says. It would be the same, it would be equally as bad if Barcelona goes behind the scenes and talks to Eddie Howe, and Eddie Howe says, yeah, don't worry, at the end of the year, I'm going to resign, and I'm going to join Barcelona. It would be equally as wrong by doing that. He would be equally wrong, because he should let the club know if that's his sentiments. If that's the case.
And are you saying that that's what everybody does?
Listen, I'm telling you what should be done, not what everybody's doing. Everybody steals and robs too, man.
I want to see you who's looking after our future, and that covers every contingency.
Where I might agree with you, Win, is that to a certain extent, right? Is that maybe if you put the feelers out from, you don't sit down and talk. Let's say, Timmy's talked about Iriola quite a lot, and I do think Iriola, he's a quality manager. So let's just say, hypothetically, they had one eye on Iriola for next season. They might want to, if they look at it and say, well, he's the man, but there's no one else, so we don't want to just sack Eddie Howe and find out Iriola doesn't want to come, and then suddenly, we're left with no one. Let's just say if that's their viewpoint, then I understand maybe you might want to put the feelers out like kind of third party, or you might want to somehow just get word back, not literally sit down one-on-one with Iriola. That's where, you draw the line where you don't actually talk to him mono-y-mono.
I'm going to send them an email saying, do you want to be Newcastle manager if we're sacked?
Yeah, or meet at some cafe and have a cup of tea and discuss terms. Like, you don't do that. But you might want to just put a feeler out there, because then you know where you stand more with Eddie Howe in terms of, do I keep him, do I not?
Exactly. But also the main thing, if you were to do this wrong thing, you can't really, because is Gavin Fuller sees in the chat saying, what are you going to offer him? We don't know if you got Europe. You don't know what players are going to be here. You don't know how much money. Like, it's this. I agree. It's not the right moment in time. You got to do it at the end of the season. You got plenty of time. Now, the CEO was asked, what does the summer look like? Is there a capacity to make 4 or 5 top signings to take the club where it needs to be? He says, the CEO, first off, we got 7 matches to go. We don't know in which regulatory regime we are going to be operating. If the season ended today, we'd be outside of European competition, although that is not our ambition. We have 2 directions of planning, 2 scenarios with a multitude of strategies that follow either scenario. What I can tell you is that Ross Wilson, Simon, Eddie, and myself, everybody who is attached, is working through what our strategy is this summer in either scenario. We all agree to be prepared for either scenario deeply and extensively now, as opposed to waiting to see which scenario we're in. So they're working behind the scenes on whatever scenario it could be. But if we finish out of Europe, are you going to include Eddie Howe in these conversations? Because by all means,
we are not going.
So What do you guys make of these statements? He didn't want to answer, but I guess what I can make out of this is, if we finish at Europe, expect knee signings, or if we finish in Europe, expect signings. Although, if you finish out of Europe, you need signings to get to Europe next season. So, chicken or the egg?
I
What
think
do you guys make of?
it's a really delicate situation, because, like we've said, if they're thinking about another manager, like I do think Eddie Howe, if he gets wind of it, you got to be careful with that. If you want to play with fire, I do think he would walk, and I think they've got to make a decision early on. And obviously, I appreciate you got to get at the end of the season. I think that will, like you say, Chris, dictate what you can then do in the transfer market, where you finish. But I think that also will maybe play a part in their thinking with Eddie, And I think once the season ends, they need to have a very quick sort of sit down, have a review, but do it early doors. Because if they dilly dally on this, then yeah, it could get messy. And like I say, Howe could walk. They might end up regretting, the fact that he's not there anymore. They might not get their first choice manager. I think it's delicate. It is, but it's a massive 7 games, I suppose, in that sense, isn't it? See, in terms of where we finish,
Do you remember when I can't even remember? I don't think it wasn't Hopkinson. It was either Darren Eales or Eddie Howe actually came out at the beginning of the season. I think, was he asked in a press conference, "What are your targets for this season?" And it came out officially from club lips. I can look it up if you want, I would find it. But it came out from club lips. There are no specific defined targets for the season. And I said at the time that was rubbish, that there should be defined targets. And then everybody knows where they stand, including Eddie. If I don't meet those targets, and obviously there could be a multitude of valid reasons why, and they would always be taken into account. But I don't think it's untoward to expect Newcastle United to be finishing in a European position.
Well, they'll definitely know where we're going to finish with time in advance. I mean, if things go bad, and that's it. They don't need to wait until the end of the season to know, because it's definitely
take 7 games. It's going to take 3 or 4 at the most.
But just a quick one on this. It shouldn't make any difference who the manager is at the end of the season. Now that we've got the structure in place in the club, we've got the Steve Nicol, we've got the Wilson. What should happen now is they should have players lined up that are ready to come in. And yes, either the new manager or the manager who's in place should be there to say yes or no to them. But them players should already be ready to come into the club. So really, the manager shouldn't be the focal point of the end of the season.
I do think it's a big part, though. Big part of the season, in terms of planning for next season and transfers.
But it shouldn't be not in a big club, Tim. A manager should be there to manage the team and should be there to manage.
Name is Peter, by the way, but.
Oh, sorry, Peter. Tim was on earlier on. Sorry. The manager should be there to manage the team and manage the squad, but the actual focus on what we need to do as a club should be on Wilson now in the coaching team. The scouting team.
Go on, Ian. What do you reckon? Before I continue on that,
I agree with Borky. I think Wilson should be sitting with a long list of players in every position. Maybe 2 lists. Maybe a list of people who we can go after if we do get Champions League or Europa League, and a different list if we're not in Europe at all. Because there's a whole load of players who won't come if you're not in Europe. I mean, we've got half the team that are going to move because they're not in Europe to teams who are. So I think it's right that we've got the 2 different lists. I think there will, of course, be a lot of signings. It's just at what level you're shopping at, really, isn't it? But I do hope to spend wisely. I hope that they go and find some of these Brunos and Botmans that were found a couple of years ago, rather than putting all your eggs in one basket and buying 1 or 2 players who then take time to settle and start misfiring because you've mortgaged yourself away to being uncompetitive then. But yeah, I mean, Borky's right. It doesn't matter who the manager is, really. Although there'll be an assumption when they've drawn up the strategy, if Eddie Howe's had input, that they've got two lists of players that are going to fit into how Eddie Howe wants to play. But I'm hoping with them coaching, having these 7 full weeks of coaching, that we can see him start to slightly change things, to integrate Voltemada as a centre forward, for example. Get Gordon back on the left wing. We played so many players out of position. I mean, Lewis Miley's been the best right back of the season. And that can't be right. And we love Lewis Miley, but we've not seen him play midfield very much at all, and that's his position. Anyway, I'm ranting on about it now. I do apologize.
No, yeah, but that's a good point. Sean, did you want to say something there?
There's a big job.
See, I don't think we should be approaching other managers when Eddie Howe's in charge. But I believe Eddie Howe knows his job's on the line. But
right.
I agree with recruitment's got to be right this in the summer. But I've got a feeling, we've got these last 7 games. All these players are probably going to play now because of the World Cup is coming. So they've got to be selected for that World Cup. So they're going to play because Gordon's got to play. Lewis Hall, yes, we believe he'll go as a left back for England. But Tino's got to, So these players might step their game up. So it looks good on Eddie Howe that Eddie Howe's doing good training, which I expect them to do 7 weeks of good training to get us to finish, hopefully for the Conference League for Europe. But I do feel these players will start playing now.
So on a question about Tonali, it was interesting his answer because he was asked, if players like Tonali come to your door and want to leave, what do you do? And he said, we haven't got an overall strategy with regards of players wanting out necessarily, which caught my attention because you should be thinking about every scenario of players wanting to leave. But he said that there's no overall strategy for that. We think through what players might or might not want to do this summer. We think there may be a typo there. But if an Isak-like scenario presents itself, any player on the contract is going to leave on our terms, and we're going to maximize the opportunity that might represent for the club. Players that leave this club will need to do so in our terms. That's all good and talk because they were saying the same thing about Isak, and he just left. But what do you guys make of that? Yeah, they were. He's not for sale. Not for sale.
That's it. They'd already made their minds up that they weren't selling him. End of.
So he didn't leave on our terms because on our terms would be not leaving.
That's right. And what Hopkinson's saying is that's not going to happen again.
That's not what he said there, but anyway.
Oh, hey, this the Bevis paying me out.
He didn't say that, Wayne. He didn't say that. He said
exactly.
Tonali's going to go because we've got him on 3-4 years. He can go, but he'll go on our terms. So nobody's going to come in and sneak him away for 65 million if we think he's worth 100. They'll have to pay the 100.
I agree with that as well.
And the thing is that Tonali's agent will know that. So it's no good Arsenal saying, yeah, we're going to come and get him, but we're not going to pay any more than 80 because Tonali's agent will say, well, they won't sell him to you for 80. You're going to have
but the thing is with Isak, we weren't going to sell him.
Stop the shit bids coming in.
It's like 150 or nothing, and we ended up selling for a lot less. So so he basically Isak left on his terms.
Thank you, the Bevis. Anyway,
Hopkinson said he thought the Isak sale was a good sale, and it was. We got maximum dollar for him, but we got it at the wrong bloody time. We should have had it in mid-July and had all of that money to spend during the summer where we were able to pick and choose.
But let me ask you then. Let me re-ask you the
trolley dash in the last week of the
Let me ask you the question.
Supermarket sweep in the last week of the transfer window.
Let me ask you the question again, though, because he says we haven't got an overall strategy in regard to players wanting out. So that's a bit weird, isn't it? Because I mean, after what happened with Isak, you should be having plan A, plan B, plan C.
Do you know what it might be though, Chris? They might look at it.
Means is they've got to each
it might be a nuanced
case on its merits. I think that's what he means.
Yeah, it might be a nuanced situation where, obviously, with Isaac, I think at the time they wanted to try and turn that round. I think when it was made clear that he might want to go, I think maybe initially the club were like, well, we can incorporate him back into the group, and in time he'll be all right and he'll get his head down and blah blah blah. But it didn't work out that way, obviously, and it may be that with some players you can do that. You see what I mean? So maybe that's, you know what I mean? That could be why he's saying what he's saying there, Hopkinson, and that you'll, like you say, Ian, they'll judge every player on their own merits, kind of thing. Some players maybe can be talked around. So yeah, I do think though that you got to be careful that you don't get a group of players where you've got too many of them. You can only have so many who kind of like don't really want to be there. Do you know what I mean? You can maybe do that for a world-class player. But when the going gets tough throughout the season, I think that's when maybe that would rear its head again, and that lack of maybe commitment would come back round potentially. So, yeah, I think if Tonali signifies he wants to go, or indicates he wants to go, then yeah, try and turn it round. But I wouldn't like drag it on for weeks and weeks. I'd have a chat with him and try and talk him back round. But after say like a week, if he still wants to go, I think you're best off getting a good price for him and moving on.
Yep. Thank you, Watson, for the super chat there. If you gave Wayne a pipe, he'd be Popeye, glug, 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 whatever that is. There you go. Now, when it comes, by the way, Hopkinson did double down on the 2030 best in the world vision. Just letting you know, because I know he got a lot of criticism from fans, and saying that it's not going to happen. Well, he's pretty much says that he will. He said, first off, the size of the challenge you've underscoped because those other clubs are also going to be moving forward too. When I think about our competitors, they are formidable and they have already got a head start on us, but all they've got is a head start. We've got a tremendous opportunity for growth right in front of us. So he's talking about commercial opportunities. He's got significant headroom when it comes to that. Which again, what about the sponsorships? So when is the headroom going to? When are we going to start catching up? That's one of the biggest questions. He's got no updates on the stadium or training ground. So he was asked for updates, and he says we are not in a position to announce today. So there you go. When it comes to that, I don't know if you guys want to know more about that, but it comes. It means that we have no update, and we'll never know. I don't know when it comes to the stadium. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. But yeah, that was the interview there. I mean, what do you feel? A lot of fans think he's just talking and not doing anything. Is the criticism right of the CEO, or is
it's just corporate speak, man?
But what we've ever seen from any of these CEOs that have been, sorry, the two CEOs that have been in, Amanda, fair enough, you can say she pushed for things. From anybody else we've had corporate come in, what we've actually seen happen, there's no spades in the ground for a new training stadium. There's no spades in the ground for a new stadium. You know, we seem to be going backwards, player signing. But what's actually happened since Amanda left in regards to this project going forward?
Well, I think it's a big summer for Hopkinson this summer, for him to kind of plant his flag down and say, right, this is the way it's going to be done now.
It's a fair
and we
point.
might see some changes in terms of, like you mentioned there about the sponsorship. Hopefully we'll see that this summer. Training ground sponsorship and that kind of thing.
Yep.
I mean, if they can't do that now, like, it just strikes me as odd that wouldn't be something that they'd be capable of doing, because, like I said, the clubs have been doing that for years and years now. It's not a new thing. So that would, looking from the outside, that would be definitely one way to try and bridge that gap financially.
Yeah. Ian, you wanted to say something there, mate?
I was going to congratulate Wilkie on a fair point, about CEOs not doing very much since Amanda left. However, I do think it's a bit quick to condemn or write off Hopkinson when he's just landed, and he's landed with where there's not been a CEO for however many months it is. He's got to try and gather all that up and assess the situation that he's in. So I've got high hopes for him still. He's certainly ambitious and matches my ambitions, which is get us competing every year. But I think we've got to start hearing that the training ground have started digging the holes to put that up. That planning permission's been submitted for the new stadium and it's been rushed through, and some practical steps to really change the face of the club are underway. Because it's ridiculous. It's coming up to 5 years in October, isn't it? 4.5 years. And all of the big things that are needed to transform this club, none of them have started.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Let's go.
Blame that for lack of succession.
Mm-hmm. I'm certainly not writing Hopkinson off on the basis of this statement. It's just a standard CEO statement to accompany financial results, isn't it?
I like his positivity.
Yeah, his positivity is good, but the fact of the matter is, when the shocking part about it has been the Eddie Howe.
Well, no, these are the bits that you are finding shocking, and I'm not.
Yeah, but you're weird, and everybody else agrees with me. So which one do I follow? Do I follow the sensible people, Peter, Sean, Ian, and Bo, or do I follow you?
Follow
which
the
one
people
is it?
who have a happy life.
Ian. I'm sure Ian is happily with his lovely partner, and Peter. He's a happy man. He enjoys going to school and enjoys being a Toon fan. Sean loves being in County Durham. Boke is having a great time over there in Blythe. So for you to say that people are not happy, you're happy. You live by yourself and eat frozen spaghetti, for God's sake. So you're not too happy.
Frozen spaghetti that I've made myself, by the way.
And frozen curry from last year. So you're not living too happy, mate. I'm telling you. But the shocking comes because just last September, Hopkinson called Eddie Howe the Bruce Springsteen of Newcastle United.
Which at the time he was.
Okay.
Anyways. Things change, man.
I think
Eddie Howe just won our first trophy in 70 years and finished in the Champions League. He was Bruce Springsteen then.
But when
he wasn't. Actually.
Wait there, lads. I think if we take the Springsteen out of it, we've got the right answer to what he is this season.
The Bruce.
Yeah.
We are knackered.
Come on, man.
Boom,
listen,
boom.
let's go.
Very
Shots fired. Shots fired, Bokey. Shots fired, man. Let's go with the start comments, ladies and gents, so we can give people their flowers before we go. All Anger Noobs is because they tell us, does that mean they have 200 million extra to spend? Should have a lot of money, but actually, when it comes to that, let me just double check real quick, because he was asked, can you make a box office signing this summer? He said we can do that, but we might not be able to do that without selling somebody. So we're still knackered. We sold our stadium. We sold, we sold everybody. We sold Isak. We made all this money, and now we still have to sell a big name for us to sign somebody.
He didn't say a big name. He said we might have to sell somebody.
Who you gonna sell? Win Murphy for 15 quid?
Still, doesn't it?
I mean,
that makes sense when he knows that he's got a minimum of 7 or 8 players that he's got to buy out of his pot. So
Correct.
if you want to bump one of them up into a box office, then you need more cash in, and that's a sale. But I think we've got to trade. That's how we get our 335.
Yeah, but all we've been doing is trading, man.
But we've spent 780 million, haven't we?
We spent 780 million in 5 years, man. And that's not taking
what
we've got back for players. Net spend is 460 million since 50
trade
million.
in a sensible way.
Yeah.
When how much Arsenal spent in 5 years?
Oh, man.
About 800, I think, now.
Right. So who's doing better?
Double what we've spent.
No, we've spent 700 odd. They've spent 800.
And by the way, Arsenal started with a Champions League squad who just won the FA Cup at the same time we started. That's the base they were starting from. We were starting from a team that was struggling to avoid relegation.
Right, but how did we do after we won our cup, our FA Cup? Knackered.
We are knackered. Our Carabao Cup, you
lost.
Yeah, but we've done that, though, haven't we?
Yeah, but the point is our similar. You say they started with an FA Cup. Well, we started after our Carabao Cup. How have we done? Have we improved?
Badly because we had to sell our star striker.
There you go. One player, man. How many Arsenal players have been sold since they won the FA Cup? There you go.
You know, if you want to go down those rabbit holes, I'll take you down all day long and I'll leave you miles behind.
Okay, mate. Okay. Bain says, all those things are coming. People should be patient. There you go. Gavin Fuller, a question, what do a sponsor get out of our training ground? It's not as if it's on TV, which I argue the same point.
Well, it is.
I guess,
Well, ask
No, it
the
isn't.
sponsors who sponsor Liverpool's training ground and
true.
other clubs,
They
you know,
do
like
it.
because it gets
It's
coverage. You get it's the gear, the
It's
training
on-
gear as well, right? If you've got training tops and shirts that the players
All the
wear,
photographs.
yeah, they've literally got the sponsor printed on the shirt. AXA
Yeah, they would do that.
sponsor Liverpool, so it's the same as having a front of shirt sponsor in a way. They get
Yeah, but
photographed all the time, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's the same as having a Man
Makes
United
Big
TV
Mac look
channel.
like a biscuit. Down in one, says one.
Thank you, Waza. Thank you. Right. Next comment. RG Fox, why would you think about a new stadium with a mid-league outfit? Fix the leak before you buy a new bath. Ooh, man.
Audrey.
That's some
right.
lyricist. Golf and Jordy, why did Hopkinson refuse to give anything regarding training in the stadium? Even to say they are still in consultation because they have done nothing. Well, that's an assumption.
No, well,
but
that's what they have done. They're paying considerable millions for the full consultation document. Which is the problem is the planning, and they need real experts in the planning to get Leazes Park, which is what they're after.
That's not the case with it. That's not the case with the training stadium, though.
Absolutely not. I agree with you.
Gavin Fuller says, why do you not think the cartel win? Do you not think the cartel would break their neck to say we're looking at managers just to upset the camp? Well, everybody would, just because it's news. They would have a heyday by Talksport would go nuts. Everybody would go crazy over it. And also he says, what are you going to offer? Well, yeah, we read that one, and that's true. I agree with that as well. Niall Powell says, let's get ready to rumble. There you go. Dean B says, we want a manager that tries to win games, and Eddie just can't do that. Ooh.
Oh, I think he tries to win games. He's failing.
Putting Waltemada in midfield. That's trying. That's
What did you just say there, Wayne? Hang on, what did you just say there when he's trying to win games?
He's trying to win games, but he's failing this season. So often.
I'm Eddie Howe now.
There you go. Somebody listening to radio is gonna be like, whoa, they say I'm Eddie Howe. Guys, NUFC, the club needs to explain how they are going to compete by 2030. Our turnover is half of what other teams is. Lost that one. And we can't keep our best players. So how can you evolve as a club? It's all rubbish. As I mentioned, we're just running around in circles. That's all we're doing. Because we lose great players, we have to replace them. So every window, we're just spending money on replacing players as opposed to adding to the quality that we have. Don't worry, Hopkinson will sell a bridge every season to keep us out of PSR trouble. I back. He can sell at least one.
I bet.
We'll sell the Tyne Bridge. We'll sell the Tyne Bridge for some PSR, man. Trust me, we'll make it work. Gary Living Kilvinston says Everton's stadium from planning application to being open took 7 years. That's the time scale we are looking at.
Yeah, but they were building on water. We are not.
There you go. There you go.
Listed land, to be fair, Win, so it will take a bit of time.
Yeah. Which is
Oh, yeah, that's true, by the way. That's true. We got the green people, man. The green people. They feeding the birds. Anyways, we gotta go. We gotta go, folks. But thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to all the super chatters. How many super chatters? Let's see who super chatted the show tonight. We got the Bevis, we got Waz, of course. We got Becca. Thank you very much, Becca. Random Access, Prosaic. Thank you very much for gifting membership to Sports and Nerdy. Welcome, mate, and renew your membership if you can, please. Also, Random Access gave one to Kaimik. So welcome, mate. Welcome. And thank you to everybody out there that's been helping the channel grow.
Andy Bell and the Bevis.
And yeah, thank you very much, all of you. And thank you to everybody that celebrated their memberships. Thank you very much. Renew your membership. Thank you. Daniel Taylor, I see there. New stadium is the main way for us progressing turnover-wise. Well, Chris, a lot more money on match day. I know that's for sure. But without Europe, that's not enough money.
The 52 million match day revenue is peanuts compared to everybody else.
And imagine,
and then they've got the additional stadium earnings on top of that we don't have. You know, one Sam Fender concert a year or something.
One. Oh yeah, us we got one, but other stadiums got like every time they're away.
The other revenue, that was interesting actually, because I made an inquiry to them. Said, you've got this other revenue. What's this other revenue? And that is from stadium tours and the banqueting that they do around Christmas time in the place. Amounts to a massive.
Just a quick one before we go. Why don't they put other concerts on at the ground? Why don't they put other things on at the ground?
Well, I presume because the promoters would prefer to go to better stadiums, like the Stadium of Light, for example.
Yeah, but why not do like a TV program, like like My United's channel on Sky? Do something like that.
Well, don't start telling them that, or we'll be out of it.
There you go.
I've said that for years and years and years.
We'll be out of my shot. They'll watch them over us, man.
But by the way, that's coming round the corner down the road, and I've forecast this for a long time now. The Premier League will take hold of their own, performing rights. They'll do away with Sky and Prime and all the other third parties, and it'll be straight, streaming direct to
Gotta go.
And
we gotta go.
Absolute billions out of it.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. We will see you in the next one. How way the lads.
Well, the lads.
And the lasses and